We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us. It's 3 minutes to 6. The morning show's on till 8:37 here on CBC. And today in the forecast, a chance of showers, 60% chance of showers or drizzle into this morning and early this afternoon. Some fog this morning. Also gusty winds 30 to 50, and later in the day gusting up to 70 So high of 6 degrees in Winnipeg. Not the nicest day for Election Day. So just it's been shared with you. Make sure you get out a jacket before you head out and vote. Let's say good morning to our crew this morning. Corey Funk is directing the show and will be covering the forecast. Good morning, Corey. May McKillop is in behind the controls. Good morning, May. And Brad Lillies is also in, waving hello to you on YouTube. He is our YouTube producer and mixing the show. Well, we do have to talk about Election Day. We also are thinking about what happened in Vancouver. Heather Wells is in now with our headlines.
Good morning. Yes, and Election Day is finally here after a month-long campaign. Polls in Manitoba open at 8:30 this morning. They'll stay open until 8:30 tonight. You can find your polling station by checking your voter information card or using the Elections Canada online voter information service. We'll bring you more about the election coming through the morning. And the other major story, and it's a devastating story. Members of Winnipeg's Filipino community say they are heartbroken about the Lapu-Lapu Day tragedy in Vancouver. 11 people have died after an SUV was driven into a crowd at that festival. We're going to hear from Junie Hosway, senior pastor at Winnipeg's International Worship Centre. He says in his 26 years in Canada, this is the worst thing that has happened to Canada's Filipino community. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
We're also going to take you to Vancouver in minutes on World Report, and we'll hear what has been happening overnight there and how people are continuing to absorb the news. So stay tuned for that. In addition, in the first hour of the show, during Meta's antitrust trial, Mark Zuckerberg said that social media as we know it is over. So we thought we'd get into that discussion. Is social media really over? What's next for it? And what are the social platforms for now, if not for socializing? Also, we'll look at what's coming next, and now that Pope Francis has been laid to rest. So we'll look at the future of the Catholic Church. Stay with us. World Report's next at 6.
Today on The Current.
It was comfortable, but is comfortable what you want in your years to come?
There are more Canadians ending their marriages at an older age, a so-called gray divorce. And the experience is different than it is for younger people. Our series, As We Age, hears from newly single seniors and a lawyer with advice coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
So it's the heartbeat of the community, of Vancouver, of Canada, of all the communities that are standing together in solidarity to get through this tragedy.
Vancouver's Filipino community is in mourning, but they know they are not alone.
Isang bagsak! And it means when one falls, we all fall. But again, when one rises, we all rise.
Hundreds of people gathered at a vigil last night. They honored the 11 people killed at the Lapu-Lapu Festival on Saturday night. Dozens more were injured when a vehicle rammed into the crowd. 17 of them are still in hospital. The CBC's Liam Britton has the latest on how the community is coming together and what we know about the alleged attack.
On Vancouver's Fraser Street, near where the nightmare unfolded, Premier David Eby and Prime Minister Mark Carney were among those at a mostly silent vigil, until one voice rose up. Was lost. And then spontaneously, others joined in. Coming together for those lost, the oldest 65, the youngest just 5 years old. That saved a wretch like me. Not far away, hundreds attended another gathering, lighting candles and laying flowers. Celine Austria was there.
When something senseless like this happens, I think there's a real yearning to just be with your community.
Saturday evening at a Filipino cultural event, an SUV rammed into a crowd. The alleged driver has now been named as 30-year-old Kaiji Adam Lowe of Vancouver. He was charged Sunday with 8 counts of second-degree murder, but police say more are expected. Mayor Ken Sim says Lowe's had multiple police and mental health interactions. Lowe's next court date is May 26, and support is being pledged to the Filipino community as they grapple with a calamity unlike any the city has ever seen. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
The events in Vancouver brought a somber end to the federal election campaign. The leaders of the 3 main national parties adjusted their final pitch to voters. It is now up to Canadians to cast their ballots. Cameron McIntosh has more from Ottawa.
I know that I join all Canadians in mourning.
On what was to be the last day of the campaign, Liberal leader Mark Carney addressing the nation as Prime Minister in response to the Vancouver attack.
I and all Canadians were shocked, devastated, and heartbroken.
Carney had planned on barnstorming the West, but due to the attack, cancelled rallies in Calgary and Richmond, BC, speaking at smaller events in Saskatoon and Edmonton, before stopping in Vancouver to meet with BC's Premier and Filipino community leaders. Carney ending his campaign the way it began, arguing he's best to deal with U.S. President Donald Trump.
We have to take him literally and seriously. He and America, they are trying to break us.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre expressed his condolences for the attack victims at a Filipino church in Mississauga, before wrapping up his campaign with a series of rallies in Ontario. Poilievre making his final call for change.
We need you to stand up for change now more than ever.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who was at the Lapu Lapu Festival, also visited a Filipino church in Vancouver, ending his campaign pitching the NDP as the party to hold the next government accountable.
You vote for someone that's going to fight for you.
After 36 days, the campaign's ending on a final day, overshadowed by tragedy. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Ottawa.
Voting hours are staggered today. That is so results will be available at roughly the same time across the country. In Atlantic Canada, polls are open from 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. In Ontario, it's 9:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. The polls close at 7 p.m. Pacific time in British Columbia. They're the last to close. The trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players resumes today in London, Ontario. A new jury has been chosen as a result of a mistrial declared on Friday. The specifics of this case revolve around allegations of a sexual assault in 2018. But some say hockey culture itself is on trial. Karen Pauls has more.
Right now, the hockey world is focused on NHL playoffs. Most Winnipeg Jets fans more concerned about their team's postseason success than the sexual assault trial going on in London, Ontario.
I have not been keeping up with that at all.
Well, I know that it's happening, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying not to think about it right now.
But this fan is watching.
The trials in London are just kind of the first step in beginning the change of that culture where it's all about protecting each other and instead it's about doing the right thing. So.
Others agree there's a bigger conversation about hockey culture and violence in the sport. Christy Allen is the Canadian Research Chair in Physical Culture and Social Life at St. Thomas University in Fredericton.
In this case, we have put the sport on trial, and I think that's actually really important because when we have enough evidence now to suggest that maybe there's something not right about the ways that these institutions are preparing young men.
Julie Lalonde is a victims' rights advocate based in Ottawa.
It's a sport like many others that is rife with issues, and there seems to be a real defensiveness from the average person to acknowledge that because it seems unpatriotic to be anti-hockey, but it's not about being anti-hockey, right? It's about being anti-violent.
Court starts today with the judge's instructions to the jury and then the Crown's opening statements. It will only sit half a day to give jurors and lawyers a chance to vote in the federal election. Karen Pauls, CBC News, London, Ontario.
The International Court of Justice is looking into Israel's actions in Gaza and its ban of the UN aid agency UNRWA. It is examining whether Israel violated international law. Palestinian Ambassador Ammar Hijazi addressing the ICJ today.
This request was provoked by the international community's outrage at Israel's methodical targeting, banning, and obstructing of said parties.
Nearly 40 countries are taking part in this week's hearings in The Hague. The United Nations accuses Israel of violating international law by refusing to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. Israel's foreign minister calls the hearing shameful. He says it is part of a systemic persecution and a delegitimization of his country. A toxic insecticide banned for decades is still appearing in fish in New Brunswick. DDT was used in the province more than 60 years ago. But as Rhythm Rathi reports, researchers say it is still being found in fish at alarming rates.
And then we grind it up and we send this sample to
Joshua Kurek is demonstrating how he prepares fish for research in his lab at Mount Allison University. He's an associate professor of environmental science and led a team of researchers that examined fish and lake sediments from areas treated with DDT in the 50s and 60s.
Brook trout from lakes in the province of New Brunswick where DDT was applied are 10 times above ecological guidelines in terms of their concentration of DDT in their tissue.
DDT was aerially sprayed over large areas of New Brunswick's forests more than half a century ago. The insecticide was used against the spruce budworm. Kurek says DDT can last for decades in the environment and in the trout, which is consumed by wildlife and humans.
DDT is a probable carcinogen.
In an email, the New Brunswick Health Department says the study found the DDT levels in brook trout were high for wildlife consumption guidelines, but in the acceptable range for human consumption. It also says New Brunswickers are recommended to follow the province's fish consumption limits. Christopher Edge is with the Canadian Forest Service for Natural Resources Canada. He worked with Kurek's team and says DDT affected many insects, salmon, and some birds of prey when it was in use.
We can learn from that as a broader group and take lessons from that so that the current day pesticide applications don't lead to the same negative effects.
Rhythm Rathi, CBC News, Moncton.
One final reminder from Toronto's Opera Review. Today is voting day in Canada.
We're here to ask you all to vote, no party or rep to promo, just here to say hey. On election day, vote and have your say.
No matter where you are or what you are doing tonight, CBC News is your place to check election results. If you are on the road, you can listen to our live coverage on CBC Radio or the Listen app. If you are on the move, you can track your riding at cbcnews.ca. And if you are settling in for a night on the couch, CBC Television and GEM are your place for up-to-the-minute results and analysis.
With a vote eternity.
That's World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Maintain our status quo. Don't leave it to the
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg with our team at the show. Thanks for joining us. Well, our voting day in southern Manitoba, here in Winnipeg at least, looks a little drizzly. We're going to hear more about that from Corey in the forecast in just a moment. This hour on the program, let's turn to Vancouver and get some local reaction here. What began as a cultural celebration, of course, ended in tragedy, as you likely know. We're going to hear local reaction from the Filipino community in Winnipeg after 11 people were killed after that SUV rammed into the crowd of the Lapu Lapu Day Festival in Vancouver. It's being felt deeply here in Manitoba. In addition, this hour on the show, as social media becomes more about viral trends and influencers' lifestyles, is there still space for real connection? And can we make it social again? Is that possible? We're going to hear that conversation this half hour. And the Roman Catholic Church is preparing for the election of a new pope. We'll find out more about the papal conclave and more about how the process will work. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells for more local headlines on stories that I've mentioned and more. Hi, Heather.
Good morning. Yes, shock and grief in Winnipeg's Filipino community at news of that deadly incident at the Lapu Lapu Day block party in Vancouver. Police now say the death toll has risen to 11, with dozens more injured. Lay Navarro chairs the Manitoba Filipino Street Festival. He says while the Winnipeg Street Festival is still months away, the tragedy in Vancouver may make organizers rethink their plans. And Canada votes today for 343 members of parliament and the next federal government. In Manitoba, polls open at 8:30 this morning and stay open until 8:30 tonight. More than 60 candidates are on the ballots across the province's 14 federal ridings. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
I was trying to do the math this morning, Heather, on how many elections you and I have covered.
Oh, my goodness.
I couldn't add quick enough, so we'll have to. I had to get on air, so we'll have
There
to.
have been a few.
There have been a few. Yeah, I always like election day, though, right?
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, you put in the research, you put in the work. Everybody individually has, decided what they're going to do or decided they're going to vote, and off we go. So we'll see what happens tomorrow morning. We'll have something specific to talk about after a month of exploration. So.
Yeah, tomorrow is going to be a big day,
Yeah.
reporting everything. Yeah, for sure.
And are you a little depressed after the game yesterday, the Jets game?
Oh, wow. There were points you just can't watch. I couldn't watch.
I know. We were golfing over at St. B golf course, and then we went in after our round, and so the game was on there, and everybody just was like sitting beside each other watching, and
Just that sinking feeling.
It's a very good word. Let's just leave it there. I think that's accurate. Sinking feeling. But remember, we're all tied up. Next game in Winnipeg Wednesday, so we'll just start over here.
Right. That's what the coach said. He says now it's a best of 3.
Funny, I didn't hear his clip, but that's how I'm thinking myself. All right, let's get into what's happening weather-wise. Thank you, Heather. I mentioned that it's going to be a bit of a drizzly election day. Corey Funk is in with our forecast. Good morning, Corey.
Hello, good morning. Yes, so we're sitting at 5 right now here in Winnipeg, and pretty much if you look out your window, what you see more or less is what you get for the day. It's only going to warm up to 6 degrees here in Winnipeg, with a 60% chance or so of showers or drizzle today. Also fog patches as well throughout Red River Valley as well as western Manitoba today, so that might impact some visibility on the highways. That should dissipate by later this morning. I'll have more of an in-depth forecast for you across the regions at 6:30. But I do want to let people know that it actually is dipping down to -6 overnight tonight as well. So I imagine there's probably some people who maybe wanted to pressure wash their deck or something like that over the weekend. Make sure to maybe turn off those taps, those outdoor taps that you may have turned on, because it is going to get well below zero this evening. So that's a heads up to you. As for the commute, if you do see anything going on out there, it's been very quiet overall. Do look out for that fog. But if you want to tell me about what you're seeing out there, give me a call. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, we obviously have a lively and growing and deep connection with every Filipino community across this country, because we have such a thriving population here in Manitoba. So what happened in Vancouver is being felt deeply by all Canadians, and here Filipino Manitobans rather, are certainly banding together. Winnipeggers mourning those killed at that festival in Vancouver over the weekend. 11 people are dead. The SUV rammed into a crowd of people at the Lapu Lapu Street Festival in Vancouver on Saturday night, a Filipino festival. It is not being investigated, as you heard on World Report, as an act of terrorism by Vancouver police. A 30-year-old man is in custody. He has been charged with 8 counts of murder. Now, police in Vancouver say that he is a resident of Vancouver. He has a history of mental health-related interactions with police. Let's return, though, to the sentiment that's pouring out across the country after this tragedy. Uni Hosway is a senior pastor at the International Worship Centre in Winnipeg. He spoke with the CBC's Gavin Axelrod on Sunday.
I know it's still early, but have you heard of anyone in the community here that might know anyone or has any relatives that were impacted by this?
Well, none so far. But that festival is something that we ourselves do here in Winnipeg. We have our yearly street festival, and it celebrates our community and our identity, our ethnicity, and what was a celebration became a tragedy. And we don't know anybody yet who knows anybody or connected or related to somebody, but definitely heartbreaking for all of us. Sad. Feel like, we're part of the families that are there and the community that are there. Just having this unspeakable thing happen. And so, our prayers, our thoughts are with them, and really praying for God's comfort and God's help for everybody. And even for our community outside Vancouver, Filipino Canadian, that we will all link arms together in support and also moving forward to keep celebrating our community and doing all of the street festivals.
That's what I was going to say. I know the street festival here is going to take place in August.
Yeah.
How important do you think it'll be to people, to not be afraid and to go to that festival still, to have that celebration of the culture and heritage?
Well, we don't want to live in fear. We want to live with optimism and hope. But I just hope that there will be better security in events like this, and just bring our minds together and see how we can actually make it safe, and not just for our community, but all ethnic celebrations and expressions in public.
What do you think the organizers of the festival in Vancouver might be experiencing right now after something like this happens?
Oh, definitely the dread, and how they're going to be moving forward, after all of this. And so they deserve and they need a lot of encouragement, a lot of prayers, a lot of support. And we hope that our community here would be able to reach out in ways that will make a difference with our brothers and sisters in Vancouver.
I was going to ask you, for people who may not know, can you explain the significance? I think it's Lapu Lapu Day, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Well, Lapu Lapu was the guy who fought against the Spaniards. And so he's a celebrated historical figure. And so, definitely it should not be an experience that is now being experienced by our Filipino-Canadian people or community out there. But, it's something that even here we do celebrate. It's not a Lapu-Lapu Street Festival, but it's just a Filipino street festival. And just enjoying, our culture, our heritage in this great country of Canada. And we hope that would not happen again and would never happen again.
How might you foresee this incident uniting the Filipino community, not just in Winnipeg, but across Canada in the wake of this tragedy?
Well, we are a very close-knit community. We Filipinos, we have our big extended family beyond the normal extended family. We treat each other like we're part of the same family. And so definitely this would bring us closer to each other. Community leaders will reach out to other community leaders and just encourage one another and help one another move forward or move past this tragic event.
If people in Vancouver, in the Filipino community, or anyone who's been impacted by this might see this interview, is there anything you'd want to say to them?
Well, we're with you. We're with you in this. We're praying for you. And I know community leaders all across the country will definitely try to do our best to reach out. And in fact, I have a team of people from our church who are right now in Vancouver. And I'll be communicating with the team leader out there and just encourage them to do the best that they can.
So that was Junie Hosway, a senior pastor at the International Worship Centre in Winnipeg, in conversation with the CBC's Gavin Axelrod. If you want to read more about how communities all across Canada and of course, a lot of Filipino communities across Canada are responding to the tragedy in Vancouver, and also what police have said about what we understand about the suspect now in custody, please go to cbc.ca.
Whether it's breaking news from around the world, across the country, or in your own hometown, it's all at your fingertips on the CBC News app. Get the top stories from where you live under the local tab, or watch video clips, live events, and the national on your smartphone or tablet. Get all the news you want, when you want it, where you want it, with the CBC News app. Download the app for free today.
6:21 a.m. the time right now, and over to you, Canada. It is Election Day. Foggy in Winnipeg to start this day. I can see through our CBC studios across the lawn at U of W, and you can already see that low-lying fog moving into downtown Winnipeg. Hopefully that won't be a problem on your drive. So far, we're okay. 6 degrees, so that's our daytime high. We're not going to move today, temperature-wise. We could even see some showers or drizzle. You might be experiencing that now, and that's going to continue for us for most of this morning. It's going to be windy this afternoon. Over in Brandon, it's 0 as well, mostly cloudy, or it is 0 rather, mostly cloudy. And in Thompson, it's cloudy and -10 right now. We'll have your regional forecast coming up here on CBC around 20 to 7. Right now it is 6:21 a.m. and it might seem like social media has been around forever, but one of its foundational leaders now says its era is, quote, over. Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg says the platform is not a social network anymore. He made the claim as his company Meta faces an antitrust trial for trying to shut out competition. And so we're asking this morning, is social media still social, or is it really over? Shruti Shekhar is with us to talk us through this, editor-in-chief at Android Central. She joins us from Toronto. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, is the old version of social media over as we, as it began? Is that all done?
You know what? I hate to break it to you. I do think it is kind of done. I think that social media has evolved a lot compared to when I was first on it. I mean, I remember having a Tumblr account, MySpace. I got my first Facebook account back in 2007. I remember joining my university group, and I met people that I didn't even meet. And met them in real life once I got to university. That I feel like that isn't there as much anymore. I think now social media really is a form of entertainment. It's a way of holding your attention, and I just don't think that connection really is there as much as it was back in the day.
Is it because of who owns it and how it's shifted, coupled with how people have changed using it? Like, how have platforms like Facebook and Instagram fundamentally shifted?
So I think maybe if you had asked me, is it because of the owner like 5-6 years ago, I think it would have been an answer like, yes, it really has been because of the owner. But I genuinely think that has kind of passed a little bit. And I think it really is the way that we are consuming content. I was thinking about this, and I genuinely think it's very comparable to like a TV show or a movie, right? So when you go see a movie, and I know a lot of people watch movies at home, but typically a lot of people go to see a movie at a movie theater. It's an experience. Your connection with the actor is very different than it is with a TV show. A TV show is in your room, it's in your living room, it's right there. You're connected to that actor, whoever's playing that character. I think social media is similar to that because it's so easily accessible on your phone. You have access to so many stars, celebrities, athletes, musicians, politicians, news websites. It's all at your fingertips. And whether or not that person's account is being monitored or used by an assistant, you still have access to these people. And I think that's sort of what that evolution has looked like, coupled with our attention spans shorter. When you look at a platform like TikTok, just throwing videos at you, every 30 seconds you're scrolling, these companies have to evolve. They have to figure out how can we hold a user's attention. So I just think it's the way that we're consuming our content and what these platforms have evolved into.
What sense do you make of Zuckerberg making this comment that social media is over?
So I think that I think part of it has to do with him trying to protect Meta, the company that owns Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, during this trial, this antitrust case that's taking place right now, because he obviously wants to say that, the company is not grabbing up the competition, and there's so much competition out there already. However, it is quite interesting that he's saying that at a time right now where we are seeing this shift in the way that we are consuming social media. We are seeing that people's attentions are shorter. We are seeing that people are going to social media to get all this information, and that's just really is the reality. And these companies are doing everything they can to adapt, to fix, to change, and really grab our attention.
Where do we go from here? Like, will there be other things popping up to try to grab social connections? And then what happens, do you think, it's $1 million question, but what happens to these formerly classically social platforms now that they've evolved into, as you described, something else?
I just don't think that we'll see social media like the way it was back in the day. And I know that's sad to hear, but that's the reality of it. And we saw that happen with Twitter, right? Pre-Elon Musk, Twitter was a platform that we would go to. We would be on, connect, have meaningful conversations. Yes, the platform was a bit, problematic, but it wasn't as bad. People were still there. But then once Elon Musk took over, people just stopped using Twitter. They just did not like the platform. And we were trying to have new platforms come up and try to copy what Twitter did. But really, there wasn't a successful, platform that came out. Like, there really isn't. And that's because it's really hard to replicate something that has already been done and was done well, right? I mean, platforms like Instagram, Twitter, MySpace even. I mean, all of these platforms, they were great because they had a specific notion, a specific purpose. And I just genuinely think that because of our habits, the way we consume content, and just the evolution of technology, it's going to be hard to replicate something like that.
All right, Shruti. Well, thank you very much. Time will tell, and then we'll have another conversation once it does.
100%. Thank you so much for having me.
Shruti Shaker is editor-in-chief at Android Central, and we have perfect music for this morning. This tune is called Friends on the Internet.
tell you how it's been such a long, long time. I felt this way that you've been on my mind. Maybe that's as far as we'll get. Maybe that's as far as we'll get.
At Lactabani, we're listening to Chris Ulrich and Friends on the Internet. And we're going to let the music take us to 6:30. I'm Marcy Marcuse. I just want to mention little fog in the downtown Winnipeg area, and we do have business news coming up. Today we're going to hear about another item that's going up in terms of the spike in price. It's not coffee, it's not chocolate, it's coconuts. Stay tuned, still ahead on CBC. Oh, we're a little shy of news time. I'm just going to mention here in the commute, 788-3093 if you do need us. The fog in downtown Winnipeg actually has got thicker. Like we're talking just in the last 10 minutes, got a lot thicker. So I'm not sure what it's like out on the highways, but please give Corey a call, 788-3093.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, we have that fog, and it is 6 degrees. It's going to be cloudy, damp, and windy today. The wind this afternoon gusting to 70. Our high today, right where we are right now, at 6. Well, a series of tributes and vigils were held in Vancouver last night for victims of a weekend tragedy. Amazing Grace. Including this one, attended by Prime Minister Mark Carney and BC Premier David Eby. A 30-year-old Vancouver man is charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder after allegedly slamming his SUV into a crowd of people at a Filipino street festival in Vancouver. 11 people are dead. 17 are still in hospital. Now, in Winnipeg, the Filipino community expressing shock and grief at what happened at the Lapu Lapu Day block party. Lay Navarro chairs the Manitoba Filipino Street Festival. He says while the Winnipeg event is still months away, the tragedy in Vancouver may make organizers rethink their plans.
We always have a street parade since 2012. So now I am thinking maybe we should rethink of, what we should do for this year, whether, do it inside the grounds or not on the street.
Navarro says his thoughts are with everyone who was impacted. On to the other big story of the day. Canada votes today for 343 members of parliament and the next federal government. The first polls have already opened in Newfoundland. Liberal leader Mark Carney held his final rally last night in Victoria.
Who's ready to help the Liberal Party win the most consequential election of our lifetimes?
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre finished his campaign last night in his riding of Carleton on the outskirts of Ottawa.
I want you to know that no matter what happens tomorrow, I will be there to fight for you, for your quality of life, for your future, for your hopes and aspirations, to bring home the Canadian promise that this country made and kept to my wife, Anna, and I. We both come from very humble beginnings.
And NDP leader Jagmeet Singh cancelled most of his campaign events on Sunday after an SUV rammed into that crowd at the Vancouver Street Festival.
We honor those we lost, not by giving in to fear, but by living their spirit, by building a Canada where no one is treated as disposable, where everyone belongs.
CBC Radio will have live coverage of the election tonight. You can also watch the results on CBC television or stream it on our websites. Now, polls in Manitoba, by the way, are scheduled to open at 8:30 this morning and stay open until 8:30 tonight. More than 60 candidates are on ballots across the province's 14 federal ridings. And heading into the election, the Conservatives held 7 seats in Manitoba. The Liberals held 4. The New Democrats 3. People living at Traverse Bay are back home this morning after a fast-moving grass fire forced them to flee the area over the weekend. The municipality of Alexander issued evacuation orders to about 300 people after that fire started to spread Saturday. Lisa Zimmerman says getting out was chaotic and stressful, but adds the community came together.
Everybody pulled together, lots of social media, people checking in on one another, everybody getting the word out.
The evacuation order was lifted yesterday as crews contained the fire. Officials say no structures were damaged, no injuries were reported. The RM of Alexander remains under a local state of emergency and a fire ban. Well, it started with promise.
Kyle Connor scores! It's the opening goal of Game 4.
Kyle Connor on Sportsnet, and that would be the last time Winnipeg fans would cheer. The Blues fired back repeatedly, winning Game 4 5-1, tying the series now at 2 wins apiece. Coach Scott Arniel liked the start, but says the game was lost in the final 10 minutes of the second period.
I'm tired of watching them make nice plays and put them in the net, but that's on us. And I look at all the goals. I mean, those are coverage goals. Those are things that we usually handle pretty well, and we didn't tonight.
Winnipeg Jets fans are now ready to do their part to help lift the Jets to a win on Wednesday. Jen Pearson watched the game at Canada Life Centre.
I feel like it's because the Jets fans weren't there. They didn't have the whiteout, and I think the energy in here, once they have us back, then they'll be back.
There's a lot to be said for home ice advantage. The Jets return to Winnipeg for Game 5 Wednesday night at 8:30. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
And I've got recall stress. I think everyone does, right?
Yes.
It's like I'm trying not to, but it's hard not to feel like this deeper disappointment than we should have. Like, instead of just saying, okay, we won 2. Yep. They won 2. Yep. Home ice advantage. Big deal. Okay, off we go.
There's a bit of dread there, right?
I know. So let's stay positive. Come on, people.
We can do it.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We're trying. 6:35 a.m. is the time right now on 89.3. Corey Funk is in to look at a changing forecast here. It's time for your regional look.
Yes, 5 degrees right now. We are heading for a high of 6 today. Chance of showers with some drizzle overall here in Winnipeg. But overall, yeah, it's going to be a bit of just kind of a rainy sort of kind of overcast day here in Winnipeg. Turning to the regions right now. Thompson, you're sitting at -10, heading for a high of -1 for you right now. Brandon, 1, heading for a high of 9 with chance of drizzle as well today. And Dauphin, you're -2, but you'll be warming up to 6 today.
I think the changes are like just this morning watching that fog roll in really thick. And then it's also started to snow into Dooley Lake. It's -15 right now. And then some other parts have cloud cover. The only place in the province, just to scroll up and down here, that has any sun is Lynn Lake.
Yes.
And even that's still mostly cloudy.
Yeah, up in the north, there's a bit of sun up there, but
Dark out
otherwise,
here.
yeah, just kind of overcast.
The commute this morning, quiet? Or?
Very quiet overall. Haven't heard of any major issues. That fog, of course, might be an issue if you are on the highways. But if you want to give me an update on any of that, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey. And later today, of course, starting at 8:30 later this morning, you're going to want to watch for voters around polling stations. More people, of course, going to be walking around. Next, let's look at business news. Crystalie Ramlakan is here with our report. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So let's start with something we've been talking about lately, tariffs. Is the trade war with the United States changing the habits of shoppers? What does that look like now?
Well, it has mobilized some Canadians to change how they shop and, in some cases, forego their preferred products to support domestic companies. Grocery stores are also shifting their product mixes and highlighting local items. So, according to Nielsen IQ, around a third of respondents to a March survey, were entirely boycotting U.S.-made products, regardless of availability or price. Meanwhile, a survey by Spring Financial found 4 in 5 Canadians are making a conscious effort to buy more Canadian-made products. And some say it's President Donald Trump's comments about taking over Canada that prompted the change. And there's also concern about food safety with the cuts to the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S., which oversees the safety of food and other products. But as shoppers pay more attention to labels, some have found the variety of phrasing a little confusing. So the product of Canada and made in Canada descriptors must meet specific Canadian Food Inspection Agency guidelines. But other phrases like proudly Canadian or packaged in Canada leave some consumers scratching their heads. And some shoppers say boycotting American products has resulted in a more expensive grocery bill, but some say it's worth it to support Canadian business.
Let's stay on this topic. We talked about spikes in the prices of coffee and chocolate, but there's another unexpected item that's going up in price.
Yes, coconuts are getting pricier. So poor weather in some of the world's top growers has hurt production, driving a global shortage and, in some places, doubling prices of the increasingly sought-after tropical fruit. So some producing countries like the Philippines and Indonesia are considering export restrictions. So not only are coconuts and products made from them, like coconut milk, used in everyday cooking by some, they're also in a range of products like vegan milk and energy drinks. But yeah, the world's biggest coconut producer, the Philippines, expects a 20% decline in output this year. And that's because for the past 2 years, extreme weather from drought to tropical cyclones has strained trees there. Now, Indonesia's industry minister has proposed a 3 to 6 month export ban, levies on outbound shipments, and benchmark pricing to try to stabilize local prices that have skyrocketed 150% in just the past 3 months. And, global demand is expected to keep climbing thanks to the coconut's reputation as a tasty, lactose-free, and plant-based option.
That's going to affect people in their kitchens here. It's a pretty, as you said, it's a pretty daily used item for a lot of people, is coconut milk especially. Let's stay with food. You have one more story actually before the numbers. This is about a new marketing trend.
Yeah, so it seems like protein and everything from sparkling water to condiments to frozen dinners has taken over the food industry. Even reality star Khloe Kardashian has unveiled her own line of protein popcorn. So the protein boost in it comes from a blend of seasonings and milk protein powder. And it's definitely on trend with consumers' recent obsession, which has been largely driven by social media. Even Tim Hortons has introduced protein coffees in some locations. So the trend is, despite though some nutrition experts saying most adults already get enough protein, and the rise of GLP-1 weight management drugs has also helped popularize high-protein diets.
What are the numbers telling us today?
In Europe, markets are higher. Germany is up, the UK is up, France is up. In Asia, markets are mixed. Japan is up, Shanghai is down, Hong Kong is down. Oil is down 13 cents to 62.89 US per barrel. Gold is down 41.58 to $3,278.14 US per ounce. And the dollar is down 0.02 of a cent to 72.1 cents US.
All right, Krista Lee, thanks for joining us.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Krista Lee Ramlicam with our business news. Well, it's morning, 6:42 a.m. What do you do when you stretch it? Having your first yawn of the day. Maybe you're having your first coffee. Or maybe you're already 2 hours in. You might have seen these videos lately. An impossibly fit influencer starting their day at 4 a.m., going for a run, then an ice bath, meditating, then an elaborate multi-step skincare routine. They may get more done before most of us have a first cup of coffee. Maybe you've liked those videos online, but would you actually try them yourself? CBC's Alina Snisarenko asked people on the streets of Toronto for their take.
That's crazy. Yep, I do that too.
I don't have the mental capacity to do any of that.
Do it if it works for you.
No.
That was a hard no.
I think about this a lot, actually. Why do we have this association with waking up earlier makes you a more productive, more successful person? That's what they say. That's a narrative.
They need to get a life. They need to enjoy the life that they're living and not have to impose it on everyone else. You do not need to share everything on social media. I hate getting up in the morning, but I do feel better if I get up early in the morning. I have 3 alarms and snooze every one of them.
Would you ever try it?
No, never.
I'm the worst if I do that.
Oh, I'm way better than people.
No, he's such a keener. You need to get your rest in order to play your A game.
Well, I get up, I go to the gym, I do a CrossFit gym in the morning, come back, have coffee, smoothie, and get ready for work.
My fantasy version of me is absolutely doing that. The real version of me is just getting by. I wake up and try to will myself to consciousness, and then I get downstairs and start dealing with getting breakfast ready for my teenage girls and unloading the dishwasher, and then depending on what's happening with work, getting out the door to commute downtown, and desperately needing that first coffee to try to get online.
It really depends on the person, actually.
Yeah.
But it's a good, healthy habit, in my opinion.
I don't know. I feel like it's more of a fad, to be honest. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own priorities and, what they need to do in their lives. So I would say, yeah, it's really like you have to evaluate yourself, see what's important for you, and organize according to what's going on in your life, to be honest.
Online trends are online trends. I wouldn't give them much value because people do that over Instagram and all the social media for money, of course. That might not even be their regular life. They could have shot it in the evening. What do you know?
I'm already awake at 4 a.m. because I'm sweating to death. So yeah, menopause will do that for you.
So no, cold plunging is not the way to be. Coffee is where it's at.
Who gets up at 3 in the morning?
That'd be a good question.
Exactly. No,
Exactly.
absolutely. Not a chance. Not me. Couldn't do it. My daughter does it, and I would never do it. No. She likes the cold plunge and smearing stuff on her face. Yes.
Not for you.
Not for me.
It's ridiculous. That's not sustainable. You should do something that you can sustain it long term and it doesn't become like some sort of a task. I don't know anyone who can, wake up every day at 3 a.m. and does the routine exact same for many, many years.
I never get up later than 7. And I'm very active and very productive in the morning. I have a whole regimen of crazy things to do. I study languages in the morning. That's my morning activity. This time of year, for the next 4 or 5 months, it's the best. The light is the best. It's like a great time to be out. In the summer, there's no better time to be. Just be outside at 7 in the morning. It's just awesome. I never sleep in. I haven't slept in years.
Sleeping in is the best thing ever. And what's so good about early? What happens? I done it once or twice in my life, and I haven't seen anything special.
I used to work construction, woke up every day at 5 o'clock, get going. But now, like I said, I get to bed by 10:30, 11 the latest. I'm up by 7, 7:30, and I think that's a pretty good sleep schedule.
I'm looking at you and you're smiling at his answer. Are you a morning person? Do you wake up early?
No. Maybe before, yes.
Would you ever try it?
Maybe the future, not now. In summer, maybe.
Every day at 5 o'clock, we'll go for a jog.
There we go. Okay, in the summer times.
Yeah.
Yeah, where are all those people in a minus 30 morning in the dead of January here in Manitoba? Maybe, though, you're someone who does get up year round. Maybe you live in Manitoba and you're doing this. That was CBC's Elena Snisarenko asking people in Toronto if they would try out an extreme morning routine. So I'm asking not just for you to talk back to your radio, but to call us. Do you have an extreme morning routine? What time do you get up? What are you doing in those really early hours? I used to work with a woman at a radio station, and she started, I think, at 7:30, but she came in every day with these beautiful nails, and they would always match her outfit. She gave herself a manicure every single morning. And yeah, she was up early to do it. 788-3205, 788-3205. Here's a bit of music from Amanda Rayome. It's from the new album, The Truth We Hold, with stories of Métis joy, strength, and struggle. This tune's called Dream If You Want To.
It's free if you want it. We all deserve a clean start. Nothing left but beauty when the days fall apart. I look out this window back to my home, looking for my family, but my family is gone. My family is gone. Dream if you want to, 'cause you can't catch a break. All of the years gone, the time that they take, you fall apart, the world falls apart, it falls apart on you. Call me, my number was 544. Spending the days remembering that love came before. That love came before. Dream if you want to, 'cause you can't catch a break. All of the years gone, the time that they take, you fall apart, the world falls apart, it falls apart on you. It falls apart.
It's Amanda Rayome and Dream If You Want To. That's from her new album. It's called The Truth We Hold. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to CBC This Morning on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube on Election Day. Foggy. That fog is now sort of drifted down to street level here outside our studio window on Portage Avenue. And it's going to be just drizzly and stay the same as what we have right now for most of the day. Windier later, but the temperature now is 6 and our daytime high is in fact 6 degrees. Well, it is Election Day, but let's return to the other story that has made top headlines. I shouldn't say that because, of course, Vancouver is going on. So this is the other story. It's been a month of news. Pope Francis, of course, laid to rest over the weekend at Rome's Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. The Catholic Church will soon turn its focus to the process of choosing a new pontiff. And the person who will lead the church, Church has roughly 1.4 billion followers all around the world. So cardinals are going to gather in the Vatican Sistine Chapel to elect a new pope. It's an ancient tradition. It is called the conclave. And to talk more about how this conclave is going to work, Reid Laughlin is with us via Zoom, Associate Professor of Christianity and Culture at St. Michael's College at the University of Toronto. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So what's the first thing that happens now that the pope has been laid to rest?
Right. So we've entered a period of mourning, a 9-day period. And so one of the things that's happening is mourning, right? So there's a lot of sadness. We've lost a beloved figure in the church. And so there'll be a deliberate remembrance of him. The other thing that's happened is that the cardinals, about 250 people who are gathered throughout the world, have all mostly at this point arrived in Rome, and they've begun meeting in what are called general congregations. So big meetings of that full group. That's sort of partly retreat. They'll choose a couple sort of spiritual directors, and so there'll be prayer, celebrations of the Mass, the spiritual work that they're doing for the conclave. But then also there'll be short speeches given throughout those meetings, as well as sort of other kind of formal and informal smaller group meetings. And this is a way for the cardinals to sort of get to know one another, to take the sides of one another, and also to do some real discernment around the challenges that the church is facing and who might be best positioned to meet those challenges.
The timing is I believe it's different every time. And we actually just had news in the last half hour. They changed the timing. So the conclave to elect the next pope begins May 7th, according to the Vatican. I think the original date had been May 5th. Is that your understanding as well? And then once the conclave begins, what happens from there, and how long might the process take?
For sure. First of all, I mean, there's some variation, but it's pretty consistent. It's between 15 and 20 days after the death of a pope, a conclave is held. So this is a couple days beyond what's strictly required, but that's not unusual. So a smaller group of cardinals, the so-called cardinal electors, who are all the cardinals below the age of 80. They will go into St. Peter's to the Sistine Chapel on the first day, on May 7th, I think we know. They'll take one vote. They'll also take vows of secrecy and some other things. Then that'll be all they do on the first day. And then beginning the second day, the vote begins in earnest. So there'll be 2 votes in the morning, 2 votes in the afternoon. It can go for up to 33 ballots, and then there are rules to resolve if they haven't been able to select a pope, but we don't expect it to go that long. So I think John Paul II was elected on the 8th ballot, so that was the 3rd day. Both Pope Benedict the 16th and Pope Francis were both elected on the 2nd day, on the 3rd and 5th ballot, respectively. So I would be surprised if it goes more than 2 or 3 days. And obviously, you talked about the process of the cardinals getting to know each other, and then obviously the smaller group that goes in. You said the smaller group of electors, you mentioned, under 80. What are the other requirements that, how do you become an elector? What are the other stipulations? There are no other stipulations to being an elector other than being a cardinal under 80. So any other requirements are simply the requirements of being a cardinal, right? So, which is, actually, a lot of people can become cardinals. Most cardinals now are bishops. That hasn't always been the case. And now when that vote happens, a lot of people, and I don't know if this is for better or worse, but a lot of people are thinking, oh, I know how this works because I've watched Conclave, the movie. I don't know if you've seen Conclave, the movie, but I think some people might be thinking, how close is it to the movie? Like, can you vote for anyone on that first ballot? First of all, I should confess I haven't seen the movie, so this is negligence on my part, I suppose. I've read about it, and from what I've read, the process is relatively accurately. There's some they take some licenses, of course. It's a fictional movie, but that it's not outside the realm of the way that this works. In fact, any baptized man can be elected as a pope, right? That doesn't have to be a cardinal, right? So, and they can vote for anybody on that first ballot. Now, we would, they're not going to vote. I don't think they're going to elect anybody who's not a cardinal, right? So that hasn't happened for a long, long time. So that first vote, again, it'll all be secret, but we know something about the conclaves that have happened in the past. And so what we know is that first vote tends to be kind of showing the state of the field, right? So getting a sense of who's on the electors' minds. And then after that, then the real sort of, you might say, politicking begins, which is both a process of real spiritual discernment, as I said, but also politics. The only rule about the politics, though, is that nobody can campaign for themselves. Got it. And so it's always people campaigning for other people. There's a famous adage that the person who goes into the conclave of Pope leaves a cardinal, because anybody who's perceived as campaigning for themselves, they won't be elected.
Just briefly last, what's at stake, do you think, for Pope Francis's legacy with whomever is ultimately going to be elected as his successor?
I mean, I think that a lot is at stake. So I often think about the way that Pope Francis sort of reshaped the papacy in three groups of things. So one of them was really his vision of the church as a field hospital and focusing on mission rather than on sort of defending doctrine. He was conservative about doctrine, but he thought the main focus should be on reaching people in mercy. And so he talked about the church as a field hospital. That's one piece. The other piece was reform of governance in the church. So reform of the curia, reform of the financial institutions, responding to the sexual abuse crisis. These kinds of things are governance matters. And then finally, he really remade the image of the papacy, right? So he wanted the Pope to be seen as a simple pastor rather than as a monarch. And we saw that even in the funeral, his choice of a simple casket. And so I think all of those things are going to be part of the mix that will be in front of the next Pope. And I would be very surprised if the next Pope doesn't pick up 2 or 3 of those, right? So I would be surprised if the next Pope doesn't say, well, I'm going to try to further the legacy of Francis in some respect.
Got it.
But that'll be a different person. Right, and
because they could come in and
reverse
reverse everything. Yeah, they could. But you said you'd be very
they could.
surprised.
I think that's unlikely, right? But it's possible. Anything's possible. But I would think that they, rather than, it's just not. Even though Pope Francis was a changed pope, he really did actually bring along a lot of things that Benedict had started. Most people don't know this, but Benedict XVI was the first one to make in care of the environment a center of Catholic social teaching.
So you've seen that carry on before.
Yeah, and Francis brought that forward, yeah.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much
sure.
for being with us. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's Reid Laughlin, Associate Professor of Christianity and Culture at St. Michael's College at the University of Toronto. News, and this is a change this morning. The conclave to elect the next Pope will begin May 7th. Previously, the date we had was May 5th. The Vatican has said May 7th is when it will begin. Heather Wells is here to talk about another election. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, Canada votes today for 343 members of Parliament and the next federal government. In Manitoba, polls are scheduled to open at 8:30 this morning. They will be open until 8:30 tonight. Voting's already begun in Newfoundland and Labrador. Members of Winnipeg's Filipino community say they are heartbroken about the Lapu-Lapu Day tragedy in Vancouver. 11 people died after an SUV was driven into a crowd there. Junie Hosway is the senior pastor at Winnipeg's International Worship Center. He says he is devastated. We're going to hear more in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather. Foggy, 6 degrees in downtown Winnipeg, very foggy. Our temperature is going to stay there for the day, and we're going to get a little windier in this afternoon. Call the commuter line if this is causing a problem for you anywhere you're walking, driving, or if you're biking. 788-3093 to reach Corey on the line. Still ahead, we will have more reaction from what happened in Vancouver through the eyes of our community here in Manitoba. Also, what about Election Day? What do you need to bring to the polls? As Heather said, polls here open at 8:30. So we're going to have that conversation and get all of those details down for you if you need that information. And then an election was held over the weekend. Manitoba's Progressive Conservatives named Abhi Khan as their new leader. We'll talk to him in the next hour.
Today on Q with Tom Power. After Bob the Drag Queen won RuPaul's Drag Race, everyone figured his first book would be a memoir. Instead, it's about Harriet Tubman, if she was alive today, making a hip-hop album about her life story. Bob will be here to tell you about his love of Harriet Tubman and to look back on his life in drag.
I really enjoyed all aspects of just being a drama kid in high school.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Today is a new day, a day for democracy and a day for Canada to heal.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Hundreds of people gathered for a vigil in Vancouver last night. They were there to show their support for the Filipino community. 11 people were killed at the Lapu-Lapu Festival on Saturday night. Among those in the crowd, Liberal leader Mark Carney and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, there to offer comfort on the last day of the federal election campaign. Today, Canadians choose their next government. Let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, take us through the leaders' closing pitches.
Marcia, this campaign was triggered by an extraordinary series of events in Canadian politics. It ended on a somber note over the weekend after an extraordinary tragedy in Vancouver. The Liberal campaign scaled back, cancelling a pair of big rallies, feeling it wasn't the time. But in his hunt for enough seats to pull off a majority victory tonight, Mark Carney campaigned right down to the wire across Western Canada, finishing just before midnight local time with his candidates on Vancouver Island.
I dream of a Canada that is not the U.S. We are similar, but we are very different countries. Canada's a mosaic. America is a melting pot.
Pierre Poilievre started his day in solidarity with the Filipino Community Church, but stuck to his planned schedule of rallies and whistle stops, starting in Toronto's 905 belt across central Ontario and landing in his home riding on the southern edge of Ottawa, where his final words were for his supporters in a seat that may not be safe for him this evening.
I'm actually in awe, that so many people have put their hope that I can deliver for their future, for their lives. It means the world to me.
Jagmeet Singh flew to Penticton for a low-key event earlier in the day, but he finished it back in Greater Vancouver at a vigil for those whose lives were lost at the Filipino Festival on Saturday night.
And I just want to, again, on behalf of all New Democrats, share our condolences. Our hearts are broken for those that have lost loved ones, those that are injured, those that are in the hospital. And the people that saw this violence are going to be traumatized and are going to need support and care as well. And I just want to acknowledge them as well.
Singh usually campaigns with a lot of energy and joy, but because he left that festival only minutes before the violence yesterday was really difficult for his team in particular.
So now, Janice, it's all in the hands of Canadian voters.
That's right. And change campaigns often lead to bigger turnouts. Voters believe big issues are at stake, allegiances shift, people come to the polls who aren't always motivated to turn up. The advanced polls saw record numbers, but that only represents about a quarter of the names on the roll of electors. Most of the ballots are not in the box yet. Today's turnout is going to tell the real tale.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. The man suspected of driving into the Lapu-Lapu Festival is 30-year-old Kaiji Adam Lowe. So far, he's been charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder. Authorities in Vancouver say 17 people are still in hospital, some in critical condition. And across Canada, Filipino communities are coming together to send support to the people most affected. Sam Sampson has more.
Oh, thank you. Mavi Tolentino's pop-up cafe is a place for connection, and this weekend, it's intentional.
I think that this is the time to not isolate yourself.
Just hours after the Vancouver incident, the Edmonton entrepreneur opened the space to anyone who needed coffee, comfort, and community.
Yes, and they've been checking on us and we're checking on people and how they're feeling. Everyone's just saying that they're okay today, and sometimes that's enough.
Statistics Canada data suggests 37% of Canada's Filipino population lives in the prairies. After a crowded Sunday Mass in Winnipeg, Pastor Juni Josue said this is the worst thing to happen to Canadian Filipinos since he moved to this country 26 years ago.
Sad. Feel like, we're part of the families that are there and the community that are there, having this unspeakable thing happen.
It's just throughout. No, we were thinking...
While grieving, groups across Canada plan to raise money for those affected in Vancouver, like the Congress of the Philippines Associations of Alberta. J.R. Delara works with the organization, and he's a Filipino language and cultural educator in Edmonton schools.
I'm still trying to figure out what to say, because my Filipino class is actually first thing in the morning. How to even explain why such tragedy took place? But I think all I can do is really make sure that they know that as Filipinos, we don't back down.
A message of strength for those living in a nightmare. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is calling for a 3-day ceasefire in the war with Ukraine. The Kremlin says the ceasefire will run from May 8th to the end of May 10th. It is now calling on Ukraine to join. Moscow says the 72-hour-long ceasefire is to mark the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Soviet Union and its allies in the Second World War. It says if Ukraine violates the deal, Russian forces will give an adequate and effective response. Ukraine has not yet commented on Russia's proposal. The United Nations top court is holding hearings on whether Israel is breaking international law. The International Court of Justice will hear arguments from several countries over the next 5 days. They say Israel is violating international law by blocking aid to Palestinians in Gaza. Lauren Comato is following the hearings from The Hague.
Both the UN and Palestinian representatives told judges that Israel's actions, both as an occupying power and a UN member, violate international law, from making it virtually impossible for the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, to deliver life-saving aid, to attacking UN personnel, to using starvation as a weapon of war. Speaking for the Palestinian delegation, lawyer Paul Riechler says that's been illegal at least since the 1946 Nuremberg judgments.
8 decades later, it is Israel that is deliberately starving more than 2 million Palestinian civilians in Gaza to achieve its purported war ends.
This court has ordered Israel to let aid into Gaza before. Its latest blockade of all aid began early last month. Israel says that halting aid weakens Hamas and has accused the UN of weaponizing international law. But those speaking today told the court that 600,000 Palestinians have no drinking water, that all Gazan bakeries are closed, that life expectancy in Gaza has been halved, and that Israel is obliged to let aid in. The UN General Assembly asked the World Court to issue an advisory opinion last year, following 2 Israeli laws that effectively ban UNRWA from working in Gaza. Some 40 countries, including the U.S., will weigh in on the issue this week. Israel is not in court. Lauren Comato for CBC News, The Hague.
The Vatican says the conclave to elect a new successor to Pope Francis will begin on May 7th. That is next Wednesday. About 135 cardinals from around the world are eligible to take part in the secret election process. They must also be under the age of 80. The previous 2 conclaves lasted just 2 days. Physicians in the Northwest Territories say the doctor shortage has reached a crisis point. They say it has become so bad the territory's main emergency department could face closures. Doctors say the government needs to act fast or risk disaster. Sydney Cohen has more from Yellowknife.
We have no idea how we're going to keep the doors of the emergency department open.
Dr. Courtney Howard is an ER physician and president of the Northwest Territories Medical Association. On Friday, she told a committee of MLAs that doctor shortages could force closures at Yellowknife's Stanton Territorial Hospital this summer. The next closest hospital is a flight away. Howard said if the ER closes for even 1 day,
it would be a disaster.
The nationwide doctor shortage is especially acute in the NWT. Nearly half of the territory's primary care physician jobs are unfilled, and the vacancy rate for specialists is 42%. Doctors say the pay here isn't competitive with southern hospitals, and illogical bureaucratic hurdles are making their jobs onerous. NWT Premier R.J. Simpson addressed the MLAs right after the doctors. He spoke about a new government unit tasked with finding efficiencies in the healthcare system. When an MLA asked how the unit will address the current crisis, Simpson said the team is focused on the long-term picture.
To really get a handle on the healthcare system, the expenditures, the services being provided.
Dr. Danielle Stackew is an orthopedic surgeon in Yellowknife. She takes a different view.
Funding bureaucracy will not address the fundamental failures to fund the front lines.
The doctors say the territory must immediately increase locum doctors' pay and create incentives to keep doctors in the north permanently. Sydney Cohen, CBC News, Yellowknife.
That is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. It is a foggy start to Election Day in Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us. We are live downtown in the city of Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This is CBC Radio's morning show, this hour on the program. So you know the polls open, or maybe you are just learning the polls open at 8:30 this morning. But what do you need to bring with you? What shouldn't you forget? How long could you expect to wait? We're going to hear all about that. What's expected at the polls today? We're checking in with Elections Canada momentarily. In addition, this hour on the program, police in Vancouver, as you've been hearing on World Report, say there's no evidence of terrorism after a driver crashed into that crowd at the cultural festival Saturday night. But we're going to talk more about the lasting effects on security and, of course, the emotional and reaction and outpouring of grief across Canada this hour. And Manitoba's Progressive Conservatives have named Abhi Khan their new leader in a tight race on Saturday. He narrowly beat Wally Dowdrich. While Abhi Khan will join us to talk about his plans moving forward. Stay tuned. Right now, Heather Wells is in with other headlines.
Good morning. Yes, and as you head to the polls at 8:30 this morning, you will see a long list of names on the ballot. 60 candidates in 14 federal ridings in this province. Heading into the election, the Conservatives held 7 seats in Manitoba, the Liberals held 4, and the NDP held 3. We're going to go live to one poll in the riding of St. Boniface-St. Vital with CBC's Megan Ketchison. That's coming up at 7:30. As well, people living at Traverse Bay are back home this morning after a fast-moving grass fire forced them to flee over the weekend. The municipality of Alexander issued evacuation orders to about 300 people after that fire started spreading Saturday. The order was lifted yesterday as crews contained the fire. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into what's going on now in your weather forecast and in your morning commute. Corey's covering both today at 7:12 a.m. Monday morning. It's kind of meh out there, huh?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of get used to it, I think, for the day, because that's what it's going to be.
It's not going to change.
No, 3 degrees right now, actually, at the Forks. It actually kind of has dipped down, actually, throughout the morning a little bit. But we are be warming up to 6 degrees. That's as warm as we're going to get. 60% chance of showers or drizzles here in Winnipeg for the day. And that's kind of a similar case across southern Manitoba. It's going to be more sunny and cold in northern Manitoba today, particularly around Lynn Lake area. So I'll have more of an in-depth forecast for you later on in about half hour or so. But right now, keep in mind that it is going to dip down to -6 overnight here in Winnipeg. So if you did turn on those outdoor taps over the weekend, you're going to want to turn them off and just make sure they don't freeze, because it is going to get quite chilly overnight here in Winnipeg. -3 right now at the Forks. As for your, -3 degrees right now at the Forks. As for your commute, very quiet. Haven't heard of any major issues out there. But if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. Let folks know what you're seeing out there. 204-788-3093.
Well, it is election day. What does that mean in Manitoba? It means 14 federal ridings are at play going in, more than 60 candidates on ballots here in our province. And heading into the election, the numbers look like this. The Conservatives held 7 seats in Manitoba, the Liberals held 4, and the NDP held 3. So we're just reiterating the numbers heading in. But a lot of you might be at the nuts and bolts of, hang on a minute, what time do I vote? When's the best time to avoid a line? In just over an hour, as Heather's been mentioning, polls across our province open 8:30. Manitobans will be casting ballots to elect Canada's new Prime Minister and new federal government party. So what do you do if you forget your ID, but you're already standing in line, or maybe you don't know where to vote? What happens if you're in line when the polls close at 8:30 tonight? Well, we have answers to all of those questions and more. I spoke earlier this morning with Marie-France Kenny with Elections Canada.
Good morning.
All right, so let's start with some basic questions. What should people bring with them to the polls?
Bring their ID, of course, and if they have one, a voter information card, just to speed the process. If you're not registered or didn't get a voter information card, that's okay. Just make sure you're going to the right poll, and you can register at the poll if you haven't registered yet.
What ID do people often bring that is actually not applicable? Like what is ID that they should have?
They should have a valid driver's license with your current address on it is just perfect. That's all you need if you have one. If you don't have one, you need 2 pieces of ID. The voter information card can count as one because it's got your name and your address. And you need another piece of ID with your name and address. The full list is at elections.ca. But just to make sure, like one of them could be a bank statement with your name and address on it, or a credit card statement, or water bill, something like that.
So lots of options. If you forget your ID at home, you can't vote, right?
Well, you can't unless you're accompanied by somebody who knows you, who's in the same district and can vouch for you.
Got it.
But that'll take a little bit longer because you need to fill out a bunch of paper. But yes, you can still vote if somebody vouches for you. You got to remember that if the entire family forgets their ID except for one. They can't vouch for everybody. They can only vouch for one person.
Got it. What should people do if they are not registered to vote?
They can register at the poll. So make sure you're going to the right place, and you can do so at elections.ca. You type in your postal code, and it'll tell you exactly where to go and vote.
We reported about the historic advanced polling numbers, huge turnout. What happens to those ballots? When are they counted?
They start being counted today, 2 hours before the close of polls. There was a special adaptation made because of the record number and because we want to make sure we get results. So they will start getting counted 2 hours before they, not everywhere, but in places where they've had a high volume of advanced polls.
There are safeguards, I understand, in place to protect the ballots during an election. People might wonder how that works.
So when the polls close, the doors are locked, and the people inside need to stay inside until the ballots are all counted. So, and there's 4 people, 2 electoral workers and 2 observers who are often candidates, representatives, or candidates themselves. But if there are none, then we ask 2 voters to stay, and voters who are not working for Elections Canada, we ask them to stay, and they act as witnesses. So each ballot is opened. Well, first we unseal the ballot boxes, then each ballot is looked at, shown to the electors, and consigned to a book, and then put in a pile for each candidate. And at the end, we count the candidates. We count on the book in the book to make sure the numbers are the same, and we redo the counting once more. So, and that's still considered unofficial results, but they're official enough to publish. But they will be relooked at during the week.
I just want to make sure that we get ahead of everything that I've sort of seen with people and questions. I saw someone question whether or not it was okay to mark their ballot in pencil. I know I voted in my advance poll. I certainly was given a pencil when I was there privately. That's what I used. What do you say to speak to that?
So the Act says we need to provide you with a pencil. Doesn't mean you can't bring your own pen, your paintbrush, whatever you want to mark your ballot, as long as it's clearly marked who your candidate is, because if it isn't, then your ballot's not counted. So you've got to make sure you're within the circle. Your mark is within you can bring a marker, a pen, use whatever you want, as long as it's clearly marked.
And to be clear here, there's no issue with marking a ballot in pencil.
No, there is none at all. And we're talking about smudging. The paper is anti-smudging, smudging proof. And no, there is no problem, no issue with marking. And like I said, when we open the votes, there are witnesses there. When we open the ballot boxes, and nobody can erase in front of 4 people.
I'm moving to accessibility here, Marie-France. How can Manitobans with mobility issues who are perhaps even homebound vote today?
So the people who are homebound could have voted before by mail or by special ballot, but we have mobile polls that are going around and making sure that people can vote. So in senior citizen homes, in long-term care. So that was done mostly during advanced polls, and we make arrangements with the facilities just to make sure that we make polling available to everybody.
Do you have any idea of what to say to people who might wonder when is the best time to go to avoid lines?
Well, right now, the best time is first thing in the morning, and I would say right after lunch before work, so mid-afternoon before work ends, and people all rush after work to go vote.
How many people are projected to vote today, just if you look at the numbers that came in with advance poll?
We don't know. We don't know at all. It is impossible to tell at this point.
And in advance polls, I think that the number across the country was about a quarter of the people voted. So, I mean, most of the votes happening today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What if you are in line to vote? This always comes up every election. What if you're in line to vote when the polls close tonight?
Anybody in line at 8:30 gets to vote. So we'll bring you inside, and you'll be able to vote. But we'll lock the door behind you. So if you come in at 8:31, you won't be able to vote.
Anything to add that I haven't asked that maybe is a frequently asked question around elections that you'd like to make clear this morning?
Just polls are open from 8:30 to 8:30, and that's it.
All right, Marie-France, I know you're going to have a very busy day. Nice to talk with you.
Nice talking to you too. Bye.
Marie-France Kenny is a regional media advisor with Elections Canada, and polls open here 8:30, so that's just over an hour from now. 14 seats in play in Manitoba, and then tomorrow morning. After a month and a whirlwind campaign, we will know what we have to talk about tomorrow when the results come in. It's over to you, Canada, over to you, Manitoba voters. Tomorrow we're going to be live in the riding of Winnipeg South Centre, so we're going to be over at the Salisbury House just to place us if you want to join us. We're going to be at 759 Pembina Highway. This is a Sal's at the corner of Pembina and Stafford for our post-election morning show live. So if you want to join us in person tomorrow to talk about the results, or if you just want to sit in and listen, our political panel is going to be on site. So that's tomorrow morning, Information Radio Live. It is 7:21 a.m. right now. It's 3 degrees in Winnipeg with heavy fog, and today's high is going to be 6 with gusty winds this afternoon and kind of a drizzly day here today. We've got some music this morning from Claire Morrison's debut record. It's produced by award-winning Winnipeg producer and artist Rihanna. It's called Where Do You Go at Night? From it, this is Montreal's Claire Morrison with I'm Alive.
Oh, when the evening's done and I've been stuck here longing, love, come on, it's only one. I'm restless and it's showing. Where do you go when you leave me in the middle? Where do you go at night? Where do you go laying by me like a riddle? Where do you go at night? You're right, it's 1:30. I know you're working early. If you could give me a sign, a sliver of your time, I'm desperate to feel worthy. Where do you go when you leave me in the middle? Where do you go at night? Where do you go laying by me like a riddle? Where do you go at night? I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. How about you? Where do you go when you leave me in the middle? Where do you go at night? Where do you go laying by me like a riddle? Where do you go at night? Where do you go when you leave me in the middle? Where do you go at night? Where do you go laying by me like a riddle? Where do you go at night? That's right. Where'd you think I would go?
Claire Morrison and I'm Alive on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Well, it might not feel like our Jets are still alive, but come on, people, simmer down, 2-2. Let's see what they do when they come back home on Wednesday. Scott Regere's here with sports. I got to say, Scott, in the NHL playoffs, the Jets' road woes continue, but it's not just the losses. I think people are feeling really nervous because of how, I don't even know the word, how definitively we got beaten.
Yeah. Well, listen, if you're going to, I'd rather lose definitively and save a little energy for the next game to try to win it than go to triple OT and lose and really be up against it from an exhaustive standpoint.
I like that.
That's the best I can do. But 5-1 loss in St. Louis against the Blues. And this is just this trend of, in the playoffs at least, struggling away from home. That's 6 straight defeats for Winnipeg away from their home ice in the postseason. And Connor Hellebuck, who's all-world during the regular season, he'll almost certainly win the Vezina Trophy as the best in the business during the regular season. In the playoffs, continues his struggles. What's his goals against average? Is something like 4, which is obviously not good enough. Some brave reporter asked Scott Arniel, the coach, about that particular issue.
I'm 100% confident in Connor Hellebuck. His resume speaks for itself. There's things that we have to do to help him. He knows that he has to do things to help us, and that's how it's been all year long. So we're all in this together. You know what? It's just a situation that we got to put our best foot forward when we go home. We worked our tails off for 82 games to get home ice advantage. Well, it's a best of 3 now. Now we got to make sure we take care of business.
Yeah, Arniel pointed out to the reporters that a couple of the goals last night, one was on a tip puck, another a screenshot that were not Hellebuck's responsibility, and that the defensive core as a unit's got to do a much better job of protecting him, which is all fair, I think. So next game is going Wednesday at home, and we'll hope the series shifts in a positive direction there. Elsewhere, thanks to Leon Draisaitl's goal in overtime, Edmonton to even up its series with L.A. And the Habs, they outplayed Washington yesterday. Still lost, though, and now are on the brink of elimination. They'll play Wednesday as well.
We will see. Now, we're also going to have to wait until tomorrow for the Battle of Ontario on the ice. But there was one yesterday in the soccer pitch.
Yeah, and it proved historic in a couple of ways, Marcy. Playing their first Northern Super League match, Ottawa Rapid FC managed their first Northern Super League win. They beat AFC Toronto 2-1. Getting the deciding goal was Desiree Scott. There are not many firsts left for the soon-to-be 38-year-old Scott, so she will take what was her first ever tally in a pro game.
Man, this has been a very long time coming. It's been a running joke that, I can't retire until I've scored, so this is my announcement. No, I'm joking. But no, I'm just so, I couldn't have written it better. Our team showed up today, and to get a goal on our opening match, inaugural season, it's just everything I could have dreamed for.
For those of you who've been following Scott's career, you might be thinking, just a second, she played for ages in the National Women's Soccer League, which is true, but in a dozen NWSL seasons, Marcy, south of the border, never managed a single goal. Fitting then that the Winnipeg native, with 3 Olympic medals for Canada on her resume, ended that drought in a Canadian league.
Thank you for saying that, because I had that moment where I'm like, what? Really?
Yeah, I know. She played forever, but of course, she's a defensive midfielder. Yeah.
Now, I don't even know where to begin. It was so busy. It's one of the busiest points in the sports world calendar. Yep. You've got a little bit of time here left. What else has stood out for me from the weekend?
The Jays, they are who we thought they were, a mediocre team with a well below average offense. 16-3 in a doubleheader against the Yankees yesterday, aggregate that they were outscored. They are 25th in runs scored in all of the major leagues. But there's enough to worry about these days in the real world, Marcy, so let's end on a positive sporting note. At least I think it's positive. Men in short leather pants and embroidered suspenders competed Sunday in Germany's championship in the sport of Fingerhaken, finger wrestling. It's a one-on-one tug of war where opponents loop their middle fingers around the same small leather band and then try to drag their competitor across the wooden table placed between them. Yes, dislocated fingers are a common occurrence. Finger wrestling has been used as a means of settling disputes in Alpine Germany and Austria since the 19th century, Marcy, and videos of it I've found provide an excellent means of escapism. And these days, a little escapism.
And this just in, the election today will be decided by...
Fingerhaken. If only.
All right, Scott, thank you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Scott Ricard with Morning Sports. Coming up, we're going to be talking not only about Election Day today, but talking about the election that happened over the weekend. Manitoba's Progressive Conservative Party chose Obby Khan as their new leader. It was a very tight race. Khan narrowly beat Wally Dowdrich with 50.4% of the points available. So where will he go from there? Stay tuned. We'll have a live interview with him. Right now, though, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in a foggy Winnipeg, and it's cooling off. We're 3 degrees right now in downtown Winnipeg. Good chance we're going to see showers or drizzle this morning, and that wind will start picking up north 50, gusting to 70, a high today of just 6. Well, it is Election Day in Canada. We've heard from the candidates, and today you get your say. And what are Canadians saying? What do they think this election is all about?
The survival of Canada as we know and love it.
Oh, it's about housing. It's about the economy. It is about our relations with our neighbor down in the south.
This election is about protecting Canada and creating new bonds with the rest of the world so that we can have a diverse economy.
This election is about Canadians realizing the importance of our country.
Many things, but primarily Trump.
Well, in Manitoba, polls open in less than an hour. CBC reporter Megan Ketchison is at a polling station on Provencher in St. Boniface, St. Vital, and joins us live. Megan?
Yes, I'm at the Franco-Manitoba Cultural Centre where there's about a dozen Elections Canada workers that are bustling through. They're putting up the bright yellow Elections Canada vote signs. They're setting up the tables. They're setting up the polling booths. And it's a busy morning in here. And I was speaking with Pierre Guérin. He is the polls operation manager.
This is where it gets real. This is the morning of Election Day, what we've been working for a number of weeks already.
And we have 60 candidates running in 14 federal ridings. Now, to note, if you have your voter card, that's the brown card that arrived in the mail a few weeks ago, you should bring that to the polling station today between 8:30 this morning and 8:30 this evening, and bring a piece of ID with you that has your name and photo on it. If you don't have that, you can bring 2 pieces of identification that have your address on it or a utility bill and able to get in. Now, we did have a record number of voters that came out in advance polls. They are expecting it to be busy today, and they're saying if you want to avoid the longer lineups to get here between 10 and about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they are expecting it to be exceptionally busy between 5 and 8:30. And if you are in line at 8:30 and you're still waiting in line, you will be able to vote. But 8:31, you won't be able to vote. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. Well, CBC Radio will have live coverage of election night tonight. You can also watch the results on CBC television, or you can stream it on our website. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A series of tributes and vigils were held in Vancouver last night for victims of a weekend tragedy. Amazing Grace. Including this one, attended by Prime Minister Mark Carney and BC Premier David Eby. A 30-year-old Vancouver man is now charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder after allegedly slamming his SUV into a crowd of people at a Filipino street festival in Vancouver. 11 people are dead. 17 are still in hospital. Members of Winnipeg's Filipino community say they are heartbroken about the Lapu-Lapu Day tragedy in Vancouver. Junie Jose is the senior pastor at Winnipeg's International Worship Centre. He's been living in Canada for nearly 3 decades.
I think in my 26 years, this is the saddest and the worst thing that happened to us. Just very much devastated.
And Wasu says his families are with everyone who was impacted by that tragedy. People living at Traverse Bay are back home this morning after a fast-moving grass fire forced them to flee the area over the weekend. The municipality of Alexander issued evacuation orders to about 300 people after the fire started spreading Saturday. Lisa Zimmerman says getting out was chaotic and stressful, but adds the community came together.
Everybody pulled together, lots of social media, people checking in on one another, everybody getting the word out.
The evacuation order was lifted yesterday as crews contained the fire. Officials say no structures were damaged, no one was injured. The RM of Alexander remains under a local state of emergency and a fire ban. Well, there were times you just had to look away. The Winnipeg Jets, with another grim performance in St. Louis, beaten yesterday 5-1. The Blues have now tied the series 2 wins apiece. Jets coach Scott Arniel is ready to hit reset on home ice.
We played 82 games to get home ice. Now it's the best of 3. We put ourselves in this position. We really wanted to come home, either winning it or up 3-1. We're not. Now it's a best of 3. Our best players have to be better than their best players.
And for a second game, goalie Connor Hellebuck was pulled midway through the third period. In post-game interviews, Mark Scheifele had his head bowed, his face covered with his cap, clearly not feeling good about the team's performance. Now, Jets fans, though, are keeping hopes alive. Jen Pearson hopes hometown fans will help lift the Jets to that win in Game 5.
A little bit depressing, this one, but we have Game 5 back in Winnipeg, so I think with our Jets energy, we'll have a better game.
And it's the Jets and Blues. Wednesday, puck drop is at 8:30. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into our regional forecast now for Election Day and beyond. And Corey Funk is in to talk about the foggy start.
Yes, we're going to be kind of socked in here in much of southern Manitoba this morning and actually throughout Election Day. It's 3 degrees right now, warming up to 6 here in Winnipeg at the Forks. About a 60% chance of showers or drizzle kind of throughout the day. Kind of felt a little bit outside already. Looking to other parts of the province today, let's head up to Thompson. -11 right now. Going to warm up to -1. It might be a little more sunny, actually. It's going to clear throughout the day for you. Brandon, you're sitting at 1 right now, warming up to 9. Some clear points, but it's going to be drizzly as well. And Dauphin, -1, you're warming up to 6, and some drizzle for you as well in the forecast today. Friendly reminder for pretty much all of Manitoba that we always get tricked in April when it warms up and we all kind of start pulling out our hoses and maybe, washing off the deck. But it is going to be dipping down well below 0 tonight, right across southern Manitoba and northern Manitoba. But could be -9 in Brandon, or -7 in Brandon overnight, -9 in Dauphin overnight, -6 overnight here in Winnipeg. So going to be quite chilly. So make sure that you
your hoses could freeze.
Hoses could freeze.
Hoses,
exactly.
not houses. Sorry, I think I misspoke.
Don't let your hoses freeze. As for the commute, it's been very quiet overall. Fog might be a bit of an issue for you if you are out on the highways or here in the city as well. Actually, if you just even look down Portage. But if you do see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Someone also wrote to me, one of the listeners last week, because I was talking about how beautiful it would be on the weekend. Come on, Saturday was amazing.
I know, right?
But they wrote to me and said, please remind people there's critters in the lawn and stuff, and so don't rake too early, too quickly. And if it's wet, you can rip up their environments and just if you can hold off. So I felt pretty good about being lazy myself this weekend.
That's well deserved.
There's another reason to do it. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
21 minutes to 8 o'clock on your Monday morning, Election Day. Thanks for joining us this morning. Well, let's return to the story out of Vancouver and how Manitobans have been reacting, and also where we go from here with security of crowds, as 11 people died and more than 20 were injured over the weekend in Vancouver after a driver crashed into a crowd at the Filipino Cultural Festival there. Police have charged, just to reiterate some of the details, a 30-year-old man with 8 counts of second-degree murder. They say it was not an act of terrorism. Now, we're going to hear more in a moment about why they came to that conclusion already. The story has touched so many people in the Filipino community, including here in Winnipeg, but it's also raised questions overall from organizers about the safety of street parties, festivals, really any crowd event. Stephanie Carvin says the fear of this deadly incident could have lingering effects. She's an associate professor of international affairs at Carleton University in Ottawa. She's a former national security analyst for the federal government, and I spoke with her at 7 o'clock this morning.
Good morning.
So for those who might be still catching up with details, what is the latest, just to reiterate, on the investigation?
So there is a 30-year-old male who has been charged. I believe his name is Kai G. Adam Lowe. He's been charged with 8 counts of murder. I strongly suspect that will increase in the coming weeks and months. What we've learned about him through either the Vancouver Police Department or statements by the media or investigative reporters is that he is someone who suffered from a significant level of mental illness, again, by all accounts, and seems to have had at least two tragedies in his life within a rapid period of time, just the last few months. And so this is something that I think police will be looking into, as well as our contacts with him in recent, in the recent months. And then, of course, they are sadly recreating the crime scene, investigating, interviewing witnesses to try and figure out exactly what happened this past weekend.
Obviously, you've talked about, some of the things that would go into, would have factored into why police have said this is not terrorism related. That's according to police. How much of a challenge is it to protect crowds of people? I mean, obviously, we've been seeing incidents like this all around the world.
It is a tremendous challenge, This is not something that's easy to do. I was on CBC all last summer talking about the Paris Olympic Games and all the security measures that were put in place. I mean, we're talking about things like artificial intelligence, drones, secure areas with QR codes to get in and out of. And so I think we have to, be clear, like not every event we have in Canada can be the Paris Olympics, nor would we want it to be. If you are an organizer of an event, or a law enforcement authority, you're kind of faced with a series of competing imperatives, right? But I think one of the most important things is that you want people to actually be able to access your event fairly easily. You want, families to be able to get in and out to enjoy and not having to stand in line for hours to get in and out of a particular location. But on top of that, you also want to make sure that first responders can get in and out, not because of an event, or a tragedy like we saw this past weekend, but because, kids get lost, people lose their medication, they faint, they get sick. So I think this is really an important thing to keep in mind when it comes to doing these kinds of things, as well as having security. So you're trying to balance all this out. We can't turn every event into Fort Knox, but even beyond that, like if you're just looking at securing a location, there's a number of checks and balances you have to kind of figure out. A good example of this is a concert venue, right? You can protect a stadium, but what about all the fans outside that stadium? Or you can protect an airport, but what about, the lineups of people now trying to get into that airport? You kind of create new vulnerabilities or soft targets when you harden a target. So these are all the different competing imperatives you're dealing with when you have an event. And you have to base your threat and risk assessment based on the knowledge that you have.
What sense are you making behind the, I guess, relatively new phenomenon of vehicles being used against innocent people?
So I would even push back against the idea that this is a relatively new phenomenon. We've been seeing a vehicle ramming attack since 30 years. But to your point, there's a researcher at the Royal Military College by the name of Yannick Vieux-Lepage. And what he's done is he's compiled all the data on all these attacks. And yes, there has been a significant increase since 2008. And he concludes, and I agree with him, that the reason that this is the case is that, it's relatively easy. The fact is that you have, guns and bomb making equipment that is, kind of regulated, subject to law. But in the case of a vehicle, it's, everyone can get a driver's license. It's perfectly legal to own. And sadly, vehicle ramming attacks have proven to be effective over time. If we think back to 2016, there was a very deadly one in Nice, France, which killed 86 people when a truck plowed into an event. If you look at, here in Canada, we had the van attack in Toronto. We had the attack in London against the Afzaal family, who, very, very fatal. So again, sadly, this is something that authorities now have to think about. And we've already seen the Vancouver police say that this event this past weekend will change the landscape of how they're thinking about these events going forward.
What have we heard, if anything, from Elections Canada, given that we're going to have a lot of the public out today and lined up?
So I'm so glad you asked that question, because this was also a concern of mine, especially when the attack happened. So I don't want anything I've said to be construed as being some kind of excuse not to vote. Elections Canada came out pretty much right away and said that, we have full confidence in our ability to not just have the election, but also have it in Vancouver where this attack took place. And just for some context here is that every riding has a returning officer. That returning officer does have a small security budget that they can use if they, so choose. So I would imagine in the lead up to the election, they would have looked at the security environment. They probably would have spoken to local authorities in terms of thinking about how to actually protect people standing in line to vote. So please go vote. There's no reason not to, especially not from a security perspective.
As I mentioned, the effects of this will linger. Just as a last question, how so in your view?
I think, well, first of all, as I said, the Vancouver police have already said that they think that this will have a lasting impact on their thinking and calculus for these kinds of events in the future. So that's that. But I think what was really interesting this past weekend is that when we saw this attack, people were speaking about mental illness, right? And the need to kind of maybe we think about, like, when we have these events, we immediately think about like security barriers and concrete barriers and garbage trucks and things like that to kind of block routes. But we also need to be thinking about mental health more broadly and how we are dealing with these individuals who are struggling before they act in these ways. And I think if that can be a positive outcome from this particular event, that would be a very good thing.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Stephanie Carvin's an associate professor of international affairs at Carleton University in Ottawa and a former national security analyst for the federal government, to hear the very latest on what is happening in the investigation into Vancouver and what happened over the weekend at the street festival. World Report's coming up at 8 o'clock. And for a reminder, Heather Wells has been talking about Manitoba reaction and outpouring of reaction here. We'll hear more in the news. And we also, after 8 o'clock on the show, are going to hear more about how locally people are responding.
When the unexpected happens.
What Fiona has done to Atlantic Canada.
Across the country or around the world.
It's a historic day here in the UK.
We give you the Canadian point of view, reflecting your community.
Story of resilience.
Canada's newscast, The National, on CBC and CBC Gem.
Like an alligator in a vest, CBC News has a team of investigators biting into the big stories. Actually, this isn't a news promo. It's a pun contest promo. Information Radio is looking for your best puns, and if you impress Steve Patterson, host of The Debaters, then you could win a big Winnipeg Comedy Festival prize pack. To submit your pun, call our listener line at 204-788-3205 or email it to win@cbc.ca. Tune in to Information Radio for details.
Okay, you want to enter, seriously, just any pun will do. And I know they're hard. I'm personally terrible at them, but just go for it. 788, pardon me, see, I'm doing it. I have to give the right thing. Win@cbc.ca. Don't call. Email. Win@cbc.ca. Corey's about to say in my ear, are we taking calls too? Yeah, we're taking calls too. 788-3205. Yep. 788-3205 or win@cbc.ca with your puns. Now, why I'm saying go for it and just give it a chance is because this prize pack is really awesome. Like, you'll go to the Debaters, you'll go to Steve Patterson's his own personal show on the Comedy Fest. You get all those tickets. You get a choice of which Debaters show you go and see for the Winnipeg Comedy Festival when it's in town. Get a whole bunch of swag from CBC and from the Comedy Festival. You get Steve's book. Steve Patterson's going to be on the show on Wednesday. He's going to be judging your entries. So it's going to be super fun. And we'll announce the winner then on Wednesday's show. Coming up after 8 o'clock on the program, we've all been talking about the heartbreak of the Jets and the loss yesterday. So we are going to hear more from one of the guests that we love to have on during the playoffs, and that is Arth Patel. He has been doing his whiteboard predictions for the Jets and all the stats for many years. He's now 12, and Arth is going to be with us to talk about what he thinks the Jets' chances are moving forward and what he's been seeing in the game. So that's coming up after 8 o'clock on the show, and the Jets' next home game, puck drops on Wednesday. It is 11 minutes to 8 o'clock here, and next on the show, I know it's Election Day federally, but there was an election over the weekend. Fort White MLA and former CFL player Abi Khan is the new leader of the official opposition. Khan also makes history as the first Muslim to lead the Manitoba Progressive Conservatives. He takes over from former Premier Heather Stephenson, who stepped down in 2024 after her PCs lost the election to Wab Kinew and the NDP. But it was a tight race in this vote on Saturday. Abi Khan narrowly beat Wally Dowdrich with 50.4% of the available points. Dowdrich received 49.6% of the available points under a new weighted ballot system. Abi Khan joins us now via Zoom. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Marcy. It's a beautiful Monday morning.
How are you feeling about leading Manitoba's Progressive Conservatives, and how are you feeling about being the first Muslim to lead the party?
I'm very, very excited. It is such an honor. Who would have thought all those years ago when I got here to play football for the Blue Bombers, I would have the honor of being the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party. It's great. I was at a loss of words when it happened and kind of hit the floor. And now I'm looking forward to hitting the ground running today.
We talked to you when you became the first Muslim MLA, so that's why I was wanting to, frame it that way. In addition, what does that mean to you personally?
Well, I mean, yeah, the Muslim MLA is definitely part of who I am, right? From an immigrant family born here in Canada, it definitely shapes who I am. But I think larger than that is as a Manitoban, as a Canadian, is first and foremost, and how we go forward as a province and how I can lead this party to earn back the trust and respect of Manitobans and hold Wab Kinew and the NDP accountable. Of course, it's a huge honor for me. It's very visible that I am a person of color. I am a minority, and most people in Manitoba know that I am a practicing Muslim. All that aside, Manitobans always come first, and that would be my priority as the leader of the PC party.
Let's talk about the party. So the leadership race back in 2021 was very close as well. Heather Stephenson defeating Shelley Glover, and at that point there was 363 votes. How do you feel about how close this was against Wally Dowdrich, and what will you have to do to bring your party together moving forward?
I think it was very exciting. It was a great race, an honor to be traveling all around Manitoba and be Manitobans, but to see that many people, sign up, 11,000 strong, for a leadership race of an opposition party that just came off a defeat in the last election. It is pretty exciting to have that room full of energy. For anyone that was there or watched it online, people are excited. Now, my job as a leader is, it was a very, very close race, is I've already extended that olive branch across the way to my opponent, to a lot of his followers and supporters, to start that conversation and dialogue, because we are going to win in politics. We are going to beat the NDP and Wab Kinew by addition, not subtraction. So I've already started that work. I started it on Saturday night after I won at our after party, and I continue that, and I will continue that throughout my term as leader, as always working together. And that it was exciting. It was wow. It was one of those moments. I think I said on the podium, it was more exciting, and I was more nervous at that moment than I was in playing in the Grey Cups for the Bombers back in the day.
Did you reached out to your opponent? Have you had a chance yet to speak to Wally Dowdrich?
Yeah, we're setting up, we're in the process now of just setting up a time. So we exchanged some text messages, pleasantries afterwards. And really, it's about building this party together. I've said from day one, Marcy, that we're going to have differences of opinions within our political party. And that's a good thing. I actually welcome those things. My style of leadership is I don't know everything. I don't think any leader should know everything. But what I think a leader should be responsible for is listening to other people, engaging in that respectful dialogue, and move forward together with our progressive conservative values. And that's something that I'm going to really put my stake on in this party and hopefully the future of this province.
I want to ask you about a couple of things that you've weighed in on previously now that you're leader. So in the last provincial election, your party opposed searching the landfill. Interim leader, PC leader Wayne Owasco apologized. You had said, you said this, pardon me, that you would not call the decision not to search the landfill a, quote, mistake. Of course, now we're talking about other searches of the landfill moving forward with Ashley Shingoose, for example, and Tanya Nepanak's family asking for a search. So what is your position on searching the landfill today?
Yeah, I think I made my position clear then, and the interim leader sent his apologies, and I full 100% unequivocally support his apology. And I apologize myself that the decision that was made, and not to apologize earlier on that decision. And I think that's important to recognize mistakes that have been made in the past and how we go forward together, Manitoba, all Manitobans together. I'll have a lot more conversations, a lot more time to talk to you, Marcy, on policies and decisions going forward. But I think it's clear that mistakes were made in the past, and we have to work together in one Manitoba, and we have to work together to make this province better. So I apologize as the new leader of the PC party, and I look forward to moving forward.
Can you definitively tell us this morning if you would support searching the landfill?
I think that decision's been made by Wab Kinew and the current government, and I think knowing what we know now, the decision to search the landfill and find the remains was the right decision to do. So I do support that. And going forward, this is the productive dialogue that we have to have, the open dialogue, and to recognize the mistakes made in the past and move forward together.
During the last provincial election, the PCs had promised to, quote, bolster parental rights. Now, you were in support of that as well. Can you tell us where you stand today on that issue, parental rights?
Yeah, where I stand with that today is that I have a 12-year-old son actually running around in the background now getting ready for school. Is that as a parent, I love my child more than anything. I think anyone who's a parent out there who's listening would agree that they love their child, and that they would do anything for their child, that they would do anything to protect their child. Really what that campaign was about, and I'm glad now that I have the opportunity as leader to come forward, and again, we'll have much more conversation on this, is to really open up that conversation and dialogue about all children in schools. I don't think anyone has a problem with that. And if you do, you'd have to ask yourself, why are we opposed to talking about protecting all children in schools? As a parent, the vast, vast majority of us are safe, loving, caring, and nurturing for our children. Why would we not want parents involved in that conversation? I don't think, I think the answer is no. People want to have that. So if we agree that we want to have that, let's have that conversation. I'm open to that, and it's unfortunate that whether it be the current government, whether it be ministers or the premier gaslighting these types of situations, we want to have that conversation.
What do you mean by the premier gaslighting that situation?
Well, I mean, look, all you have to do is watch a question period or listen to any of his comments around this. I have said nothing other than that I want to protect all children, that we need to have a dialogue and conversation. We need to revisit the Schools Act on this. I mean, 30 years, lots has changed in our school system. I think we can also agree with that. When it comes to different types of bullying and cyberbullying, sexploitation online, these are all issues that need to be discussed with parents, with stakeholders, with teachers, with principals, with guidance counselors, with kids at the same table to say, how do we protect children moving forward? I think that's the important part. Very open dialogue with everyone at the table to move forward in protecting children, and that includes parents.
As a last question, there's been uncertainty, of course, among businesses and political tensions with the states with Donald Trump. How do you think that Premier Canoe is leading the province on those issues, and what might you do differently if you were Premier?
Yeah, I think during the campaign, I've talked really a lot about growing our economy, about unleashing the potential of Manitoba. Manitoba right now is a province where we are getting federal transfers, and I believe that we have the potential to unlock all the resources we have here. I'm not just talking about natural resources. I'm also talking about the people and the potential and the workforce here. When it comes to agriculture, when it comes to mining, when it comes to manufacturing, we have so many great things here in Manitoba. So we need to grow our economy. Until we can grow our economy and stand on our own 2 feet, it's very hard to stand up to a bully when you don't have that platform, when you don't have that ability. So we need to grow our economy. Now, when you look at what Bob Canoe has done here and the province of Manitoba against the tariffs, has pulled American alcohol off the shelf and paused business taxes. Delayed them. So they still have to pay them. Business will still have to pay, but they've just given them a 3-month relief. Well, in 3 months, where's that business going to come up with the money? We need real change to grow Manitoba.
So you would have a different approach. Abhi Khan, our time is through for this conversation. Congratulations again. Thank you very much for joining us on CBC.
Thank you very much, Marcy. Looking forward to many, many more. And thank you to all the members out there in Manitoba. Look forward to going forward.
That's Abhi Khan, the new leader of the Manitoba Progressive Conservatives. Let's go now to Heather Wells for headlines.
Well, shock and grief in Winnipeg's Filipino community after the deadly Lapu-Lapu Day block party tragedy in Vancouver. We'll hear from some Winnipeggers coming up. And in just over half an hour, polls will open in Manitoba in this federal election. We'll take you to one polling station in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Time right now is 1 minute to 8. It's 3 degrees in Winnipeg and foggy. If you have an issue on the commute, 788-3093. That fog seems to be starting to lift in downtown Winnipeg. Still ahead, we're going to talk about the Jets' chances moving forward after a heartbreaking loss on the weekend. Stay with us.
After Bob the Drag Queen won RuPaul's Drag Race, everyone figured his first book would be a memoir. Instead, it's about Harriet Tubman, if she was alive today, making a hip-hop album about her life story. Bob will be here to tell you about his love of Harriet Tubman and to look back on his life in drag.
I really enjoyed all aspects of just being a drama kid in high school.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
There are more Canadians ending their marriages at an older age, a so-called gray divorce. And the experience is different than it is for younger people. Our series, As We Age, hears from newly single seniors and a lawyer with advice coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Today is a new day, a day for democracy and a day for Canada to heal.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Hundreds of people gathered for a vigil in Vancouver last night. They were there to show their support for the Filipino community. 11 people were killed at the Lapu-Lapu Festival on Saturday night. Among those in the crowd, Liberal leader Mark Carney and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, there to offer comfort on the last day of the federal election campaign. Today, Canadians choose their next government. Let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, take us through the leaders' closing pitches.
Marcia, this campaign was triggered by an extraordinary series of events in Canadian politics. It ended on a somber note over the weekend after an extraordinary tragedy in Vancouver. The Liberal campaign scaled back, cancelling a pair of big rallies, feeling it wasn't the time. But in his hunt for enough seats to pull off a majority victory tonight, Mark Carney campaigned right down to the wire across Western Canada, finishing just before midnight local time with his candidates on Vancouver Island.
I dream of a Canada that is not the U.S. We are similar, but we are very different countries. Canada's a mosaic. America is a melting pot.
Pierre Poilievre started his day in solidarity with the Filipino Community Church, but stuck to his planned schedule of rallies and whistle stops, starting in Toronto's 905 belt across central Ontario and landing in his home riding on the southern edge of Ottawa, where his final words were for his supporters in a seat that may not be safe for him this evening.
I'm actually in awe, that so many people have put their hope that I can deliver for their future, for their lives. It means the world to me.
Jagmeet Singh flew to Penticton for a low-key event earlier in the day, but he finished it back in Greater Vancouver at a vigil for those whose lives were lost at the Filipino Festival on Saturday night.
And I just want to, again, on behalf of all New Democrats, share our condolences. Our hearts are broken for those that have lost loved ones, those that are injured, those that are in the hospital. And the people that saw this violence are going to be traumatized and are going to need support and care as well. And I just want to acknowledge them as well.
Singh usually campaigns with a lot of energy and joy, but because he left that festival only minutes before the violence yesterday was really difficult for his team in particular.
So now, Janice, it's all in the hands of Canadian voters.
That's right. And change campaigns often lead to bigger turnouts. Voters believe big issues are at stake, allegiances shift, people come to the polls who aren't always motivated to turn up. The advanced polls saw record numbers, but that only represents about a quarter of the names on the roll of electors. Most of the ballots are not in the box yet. Today's turnout is going to tell the real tale.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. The man suspected of driving into the Lapu-Lapu Festival is 30-year-old Kai G. Adam Lowe. So far, he's been charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder. Authorities in Vancouver say 17 people are still in hospital, some in critical condition. And across Canada, Filipino communities are coming together to send support to the people most affected. Sam Sampson has more.
Oh, thank you. Mavi Tolentino's pop-up cafe is a place for connection
And this weekend, it's intentional.
I think that this is the time to not isolate yourself.
Just hours after the Vancouver incident, the Edmonton entrepreneur opened the space to anyone who needed coffee, comfort, and community.
Yes, and they've been checking on us and we're checking on people and how they're feeling. Everyone's just saying that they're okay today, and sometimes that's enough.
Statistics Canada data suggests 37% of Canada's Filipino population lives in the prairies. After a crowded Sunday Mass in Winnipeg, Pastor Juni Josue said this is the worst thing to happen to Canadian Filipinos since he moved to this country 26 years ago.
Sad. Feel like, we're part of the families that are there and the community that are there, having this unspeakable thing happen.
It's just throughout. No, we were thinking...
While grieving, groups across Canada plan to raise money for those affected in Vancouver, like the Congress of the Philippines Associations of Alberta. J.R. Delara works with the organization, and he's a Filipino language and cultural educator in Edmonton schools.
I'm still trying to figure out what to say, because my Filipino class is actually first thing in the morning. How to even explain why such tragedy took place. But I think all I can do is really make sure that they know that as Filipinos, we don't back down.
A message of strength for those living in a nightmare. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
Israel's actions in Gaza are under examination at the International Court of Justice.
Israel has not allowed food, water, medicine, and medical supplies or fuel into Gaza for the past 2 months.
Palestinian Ambassador Ammar Hijazi speaking before the ICJ today. Nearly 40 countries are taking part in the week-long hearings in The Hague. They're looking into Israel's ban of the UN aid agency UNRWA. The United Nations accuses Israel of violating international law by refusing to allow aid into Gaza. The CBC's Crystal Gomansing has more from London.
What we're seeing right now is an entire civilian population, 2 million people, 1 million children who are going without.
Sam Rose is the senior deputy director of UNRWA in Gaza. Having been sealed off from the outside world and all aid halted by Israel for nearly 60 days, he says the depth of suffering will plunge further.
And if that food doesn't come in, those children will start to die, and that will happen very quickly.
Hell on earth is how the president of the Red Cross described the humanitarian situation in Gaza earlier this month, warning the agency's field hospital was nearly out of supplies. Dr. Mohammed Abu Maghassib is MSF's deputy medical coordinator in Gaza.
Majority of the injuries, there are children and women and civilians. And this is what we see in our hospitals.
The UN's lawyer at the ICJ started her comments by imploring both Israel and Hamas to respect the rules of war.
That all parties to a conflict must comply with all their obligations under international law.
The court is being asked to advise on what obligations Israel has as an occupying power and as a signatory of the UN Charter. Speaking from Jerusalem, Foreign Affairs Minister Gideon Saar called the proceedings shameful. Israel did not send a delegation to attend the hearings. It maintains Hamas can end the war by releasing all of the hostages and surrendering power. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, London.
The trial of 5 former world junior hockey players resumes today in London, Ontario. A new jury has been chosen as a result of a mistrial declared on Friday. The specifics of this case revolve around allegations of a sexual assault in 2018, but some say hockey culture itself is on trial. Karen Pauls has more.
Right now, the hockey world is focused on NHL playoffs. Most Winnipeg Jets fans more concerned about their team's postseason success than the sexual assault trial going on in London, Ontario.
I have not been keeping up with that at all.
Well, I know that it's happening, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying not to think about it right now.
But this fan is watching.
The trials in London are just kind of the first step in beginning the change of that culture where it's all about protecting each other and instead it's about doing the right thing. So.
Others agree there's a bigger conversation about hockey culture and violence in the sport. Christy Allen is the Canadian Research Chair in Physical Culture and Social Life at St. Thomas University in Fredericton.
In this case, we have put the sport on trial, and I think that's actually really important because when we have enough evidence now to suggest that maybe there's something not right about the ways that these institutions are preparing young men.
Julie Lalonde is a victims' rights advocate based in Ottawa.
It's a sport like many others that is rife with issues, and there seems to be a real defensiveness from the average person to acknowledge that, because it seems unpatriotic to be anti-hockey. But it's not about being anti-hockey, right? It's about being anti-violent.
Court starts today with the judge's instructions to the jury and then the Crown's opening statements. It will only sit half a day to give jurors and lawyers a chance to vote in the federal election. Karen Pauls, CBC News, London, Ontario.
And a reminder, CBC News is your place to check election results. Listen to our live coverage on CBC Radio or the Listen app. Track what's happening in your riding at cbcnews.ca and watch CBC Television or GEM for up-to-the-minute results and analysis. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba, and welcome to Election Day. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. It has been foggy. It's just starting to lift, but it's going to stay drizzly today. And certainly cloudy across southern Manitoba. Well, this half hour on the program, the Filipino community all across the country is in mourning, as you heard on World Report and in our local news. People reacting to 11 people who were killed by an SUV that drove into a crowd of people at a street festival in Vancouver on the weekend. This half hour, we will hear from Manitoba's Filipino community. They're getting ready to hold their own street festival in Winnipeg later this summer, so stay tuned for some of that local reaction. In addition, this half hour, quite a lot of reaction to yesterday's loss by the Winnipeg Jets, 5-1. So disappointing. We are going to hear from one of the Winnipeg Jets' biggest fans who keeps all the stats. 12-year-old Arth Patel is back in studio with his whiteboard. Stay tuned. Hopefully he's got something promising to say moving forward. Yeah, that one hurt, gotta say. All right, 8:11 is the time. Heather Wells joins us with other news headlines this morning. Hello.
Hello. Well, we are just 19 minutes away for polls to open in Manitoba in this federal election. They'll be open until 8:30 tonight. More than 60 candidates are on ballots across the province's 14 federal ridings. Heading into this election, the Conservatives held 7 seats in Manitoba, the Liberals held 4, and the NDP held 3. We're going to go live to one polling station in the riding of St. Boniface St. Vital. CBC's Megan Ketchison is there, and we'll bring you that story, setting the scene as polls are about to open in this province. People living at Traverse Bay are back home this morning after a fast-moving grass fire forced them to flee over the weekend. The municipality of Alexander issued evacuation orders to about 300 people after fire started spreading Saturday. The evacuation order was lifted yesterday when crews contained the fire. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Quick weather and traffic now with Corey Funk, who is popped into the studio to let us know what's happening for the day.
Hi, yeah. Right now, it's been getting colder throughout the morning. We are sitting now at 1 here in Winnipeg at the Forks right now. We are going to be warming up to 6 today. 60% chance of showers or drizzle. But it is going to be dipping down again tonight to -6. And actually, that's the case for much of southern Manitoba. So keep in mind that it's going to get well below 0 tonight. But it will get warmer if you are looking ahead, 12 degrees tomorrow and sunny. So that sun will come back if you are wondering when will it be coming back. Up north, it is going to be a little more sunny today, but also still cold, hovering right around 0, a little bit below in Thompson.
Thompson will rainy, actually, though. They're not going to get sun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it'll clear a little bit later, according.
Oh, I'm wrong. That's tonight that they get the rain. So they're exactly what you said. Sorry,
yes.
Corey.
Oh, no problem.
I flipped the page. I'm like, thought I'm being helpful.
Marcy,
but I'm
just
not at all.
fact-checking me as we go. See,
right?
That's the kind of quality you get. If
there you go. Off air, he'll say, you're being a control freak. And I'll owe him a coffee, which is also true.
That happens too sometimes. But turning to the commute, and haven't heard of any major issues, unless, Marcy, you've heard of something that you want to tell me about.
No, nothing.
Okay, good. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line if you do see something, though. 204-788-3093.
8:14 is the time right now. I'm Marcy Marcusa here at Information Radio. You are on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Well, as we have been hearing all morning, we're reminded that across the country, people are reacting to what happened on Saturday in Vancouver. 11 people killed, dozens injured, a man driving an SUV into a crowd at a Filipino festival on Saturday night. So this happened as the Lapu-Lapu Festival was winding down in South Vancouver. The incident is not being investigated as an act of terrorism. A 30-year-old man has been arrested and charged with 8 counts of murder. Now, the story has touched so many people across the country and then also so many people specifically in the Filipino community, including here in Winnipeg. It's also, though, raised some questions from organizers here about the safety of street parties and festivals. Lay Navarro is chair of the Manitoba Filipino Street Festival here. He spoke with CBC's Gavin Axelrod on Sunday.
I thought, boy, it's going to affect most of the, if not all, the Filipino events in Vancouver. And I think they have more than, 8 events there this year?
How is people in the community that you've talked to? I know it's kind of early in the morning, but how are people reacting to this?
I've talked to a few people who are organizing a prayer vigil tonight. I phoned my friend in Vancouver because I know he does most of the events there. And he said that, he's not doing this event, but his nephew narrowly missed the car. So, I can just imagine, the family in Vancouver actually, they're thankful that nothing happened to him.
When you hear that someone you know, their nephew, just narrowly avoided the car, what do you think about?
Well, I'm thinking of our own event here, the Manitoba Filipino Street Festival, because we always have a street parade since 2012. So now I am thinking maybe we should rethink of, what we should do for this year, whether, do it inside the grounds or not on the street. So, we have to do a lot of planning because of this incident.
For the street festival, what kind of security presence would you normally have for that kind of event?
Well, normally we have the Winnipeg police there. We have volunteers. There was one year we even had the Bear Clan there. Last year we had the safety officers of the city was there because the mayor is always in the parade. So we have very strict security. But then, you never know. You never know.
I was wondering as well, when you see that something like this could happen at a street event, you run a street festival, do you ever think wow, does it worry you about maybe something happening here?
Well, I do now. I do now. That's why, our festival is not until August. So we have a few months to really prepare.
What would you want to say to members of the Filipino community here in Manitoba who might be worried or scared after seeing something like this happen and just they might be pretty sad today as well?
Well, it's not really, it's an isolated incident, right? And one thing is the police in Vancouver was actually, they seem to be very sure that this is not a terrorist act, which is good. But, anything can happen, like I said.
How important do you think prayer is in these times for people to be together and just pray for all those who have been impacted?
Well, that's the only way we can, The prayer actually makes it easier for us to really understand all of this.
Could you ever have imagined something like this would happen?
Here in Manitoba?
Just anywhere in Canada, yeah.
Well, with the recent incidents in the U.S. and anywhere else, it can happen anywhere.
I was wondering as well, I know the festival isn't until August, but what kind of things might you look at to maybe change or do differently this year in the wake of this happening?
Well, like I said, we have to maybe rethink of doing the street festival, the street parade. Instead of closing a street, maybe we can do it inside the grounds, like we are doing it at the Maples Multiplex, and the Maples has a really big ground, and we can do it there. Of course, my prayer goes to the families of all the victims. And also, I am also concerned about all the organizers because I know personally most of the organizers of the events in Vancouver, and I know they're going through really a hard time right now, planning and rethinking of what they're going to do for their events.
Tell me about, I know like the Filipino community is very close, tight-knit. How might the community, not just here in Winnipeg, but across Canada, lean on each other after this incident?
I've heard some groups this morning who are planning a prayer vigil for the victims. I just would like to tell maybe advise everyone that this is not a regular incident. This is an isolated incident.
That was Leigh Navarro, the chairperson of the Manitoba Filipino Street Festival, in conversation with Gavin Axelrod on Sunday. And so if you want to read more coverage of this and see what's happening nationally with the investigation and what we understand, or rather what we know up to this point, please go to cbc.ca.
Whether it's breaking news from around the world, across the country, or in your own hometown, it's all at your fingertips on the CBC News app. Get the top stories from where you live under the local tab, or watch video clips, live events, and the national on your smartphone or tablet. Get all the news you want, when you want it, where you want it, with the CBC News app. Download the app for free today.
Well, it's election day, so stay with us because 10 minutes from now, the polls will open, and we have Megan Ketchison from our news department who's out this morning, and she will bring us the very latest at 8:30 when the polls open. Right now, though, let's talk about that hockey game. After a disappointing loss for the Jets, losing Game 4 to the St. Louis Blues yesterday, final score 5-1. A lot of Jets fans are trying to stay positive. Here's Gavin Axelrod from CBC, switching gears over the weekend and talking to Jets fans in Winnipeg at Canada Life Centre.
So what do you think of the Jets game today?
The Jets game has kind of been disappointing. They seem to not have enough pushback against the other teams. I think they just need to get more in there and try and score some goals.
They're going to come back here to Winnipeg on Wednesday night. How do you feel about their chances?
I think we have a good chances. It's our home ice. Winnipeg likes to bring the energy, so I think we got that one.
And what do you think it is, the last two games? What kind of fell apart for the Jets here?
I think we've just been lacking energy in our playing, and I think we've been playing a little sloppy, and they've just been beating us to the pucks.
Well, I think the Jets didn't have any pressure defensively on the opposition when they were trying to get into our zone. And that was the biggest downfall, I think. And the St. Louis just outplayed the Jets.
What do you foresee happening Wednesday when they come back here?
Oh, when they get back to Winnipeg, the Jets will be fired right up, and I think that St. Louis is going to lose for sure. Karen?
Oh, it was a tough one. It was a really good first period. And then it was just a bit of a lull in our second period. So we'll come back and we'll get them on Wednesday.
Wednesday, we've got it. We've got it on Wednesday.
What's going on with the Jets the past two games that they weren't able to get it done in St. Louis?
I think they need the crowd behind them, and I think they'll have that on Wednesday.
So the crowd is a secret sauce.
It's absolutely. It is.
What was it like being here today for the game, even though they lost? It must have been pretty fun.
It was a blast. We had a great time. It was great being here as a patron.
CBC's Gavin Axelrod talking to Winnipeg Jets fans Tracy Smith, Jerry May, and Easton Schott. The Jets are still in this, of course. The series tied 2-2. Game 5 set for Wednesday. Home ice, 8:30 start. And even though Wednesday looks like it might be rainy, by the evening it should clear a little bit. Fans are hopeful, especially my favorite fan, 12-year-old Arth Patel, who comes and visits us at Information Radio during the playoffs. He is a Winnipegger. He's been on the show before. You might remember he keeps his own whiteboard full of stats, and he's brought it to the studio. Hi, Arth.
Hello.
So you were at the Canada Life Centre, and you said you left that game feeling rattled.
Yeah, I mean, it was an awful game. No offense to the Jets. I mean, they did everything they could, but it comes down to the final score of the game, and it's not like we lose two games, even if we lose by a score of 5-1. I heard earlier on the radio he said, I would rather lose in regulation than it could go to triple overtime and still lose.
Those are sports reporters saying, because then you save some energy. But
yeah, but it was a tough loss. But I feel like the whole team will be back, and Hellebuck really needs to, dial in, and then he'll be fine.
So let's talk about the pep talk on the ride home. I heard your dad was trying to help you feel positive.
Yeah, he told me about I was coming here,
Yeah.
and he was like, "You got to stay positive for the game. You can't say anything negative. The boys did everything they could."
It's hard though to be
Yeah,
positive,
I know,
right?
but,
I'm finding it hard to be positive.
Yeah, it is, but you got to stay consistent. Real fans, they stay consistent with their team, no
All right.
matter what the score is at the end of the day.
Okay,
but-
let's be real fans. You and me will try to help each other stay
Yeah.
positive. I do have to ask about Hellebuck though, because you were watching him during the game. What did you see in that? Because the sports analysts are saying that the defense wasn't there to protect the net as well as they could have been, so it wasn't all Hellebuck here. But some of it though, what did you see in Hellebuck?
Yeah, Hellebuck, I feel like he's under the pressure right now. Everyone has been saying he's not a playoff goalie, and I feel like we could do something like how the Oilers did, and they let their backup play a few games, and they won both those games too. So I think if we can just let Hellebuck dial in, he has 2 days of rest, of course, and I feel like he'll be back. He had that one good game on game 2.
Yeah.
And I feel like he is MVP caliber goalie, and he's the reason we're here in the first place. So I think that's going to be why we're going to be a better team than the other team. And like Coach Scott Arnell said, our best players have to be better than their best players in order to win.
You were at Canada Life for this game yesterday. You brought your whiteboard. You're in the crowd. What was the reaction from the crowd? Like, take me to a happy moment, which might be early with Connor's goal, right? Because then it went downhill. So what was it like being in the crowd in the best parts?
It was nice. It was a little bit of an electric crowd at the start. A huge goal at the start of the game, and then a lot of fans were also rattled, and nobody really enjoyed the latter end of the game.
Did people leave, start thinning out?
A lot of people did start thinning out the crowd. It did not look really like a whiteout anymore.
Yep.
And
let's look at your board here. So this is for tomorrow's game. We've won 2, they've won 2. You've made a board like this before.
I have.
But especially the exact same thing, I think, when we're tied up in this series.
Yeah.
What did you notice, given that obviously people can see on the board that you take care of everything here, right? So SOG is shots on goal.
Yeah.
What did that look like yesterday?
We were out shooting them. We were the better team, I felt like. And I felt like we followed a game plan through the first, 20-ish minutes of the game. That late goal really sucked the souls out of the team, and that goal by Jake Neighbors, that deflection, that sucked. And then the Blues just carried that momentum the entire game. They made it 5-1. Of course, it does not look good when it's at 5-1. So
no. For people that have not followed before, your coverage and being on CBC, remind us, how you became a Jets fan. How long have you been a Jets fan?
I've been a Jets fan ever since that crazy 2017-18 season. That was really my first season of being a real Jets fan.
Mm-hmm.
But ever since then, we've been consistent Jets fans. Getting my first jersey, that was fun. We used to go to a lot of street parties, and that's how I actually ended up going to my first ever whiteout game. We were at a street party, and then luckily, somebody came up to us, and they were like, "Are you a group of 3?" And we were like, "Yeah." And then they gave us tickets to head on inside. It was against the Blues, actually, in 2019, so.
Wow, what a gift, huh? Yeah, how are you not addicted to going after that? Because I've been at whiteout games. Someone invited me too, and it's amazing when you're in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went to game 1. That was an awesome game, sitting up in the 300s. You can really feel that energy, and it's every 3 seconds. It's go Jets, go.
Yeah. People say you want to sit close, but I'm with you. When you're up there in those seats where people are just I got in, I'm here, and you're watching. I love watching from up there.
I feel like it's louder up there. I don't know if it's anything to do with the geometry of the place, but it just feels louder up there than lower.
So what do we have to do then on Wednesday to make this board fill out better, to see the Jets on top again? What do you think?
I think we just follow a game plan. I mean, Scott Arnell has been perfect. Not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but he's been really solid through the season. I feel like if Hellebuck really dials in for the next game, the defense has got to play better, but Did
he look nervous to you, Hellebuck?
Yeah, he did. I feel like after that first couple of goals in Game 3, he really looked like he was scared. And same with Game 1. The first couple of shots, 3 goals on 10 shots, that was Hellebuck being nervous, and it felt like the Jets really have to be there for him. And I feel like if we advance to the next round, he's going to be a little bit more locked in as he gets more experience of the team.
All right, Arth, let's get Marge on camera here. All three of us are on YouTube. Everybody put your hands up and your fingers together. Positive thoughts, people.
Yes.
Positive thoughts. Arth and I are trying to be positive. We're having trouble. But you're a Jets fan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Arth has to go in there and give the team a little bit of a pep talk at the beginning of the game and get them motivated.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I mean, if I got the chance, I would.
Okay, let's end this properly. Ready?
Go Jets, go. Go Jets, go. Go Jets, go.
Arth, I love having you in studio. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah,
I sure hope you're back when we're talking about a win.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
And that is Arth Patel, young Jets fan and analyst, keeps his whiteboard full of stats for every game. Next playoff is Wednesday. Puck drop 8:30. We're going to be staying up late again against St. Louis, but it is here at home. Marjorie's here to tell us what's coming up on the call-in portion of noon.
Well, April is Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Month, and we're going to be speaking about why it's important to sign that donor card. And we want to hear stories from you as well. Do you know someone who's on a wait list? Maybe you have a story of someone who did receive an organ. Join us after 12:30 with your questions and your comments on Radio Noon.
All right. Thanks, Marge.
Thanks, Marcy.
We are foggy. The commute has been so far so good, even late in the show here. And your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's 1 degree. We have fallen. We were at 6 earlier this morning. So 1 degree now in Winnipeg. Our high today is 6. Good chance of showers or drizzle through the day. Windy as well. And we're expecting gusts up to 70 later this morning. Well, polls are opening right now, right across the province. It is Election Day in Canada. More than 60 candidates are on ballots across Manitoba's 14 ridings. And as the voting begins, CBC reporter Megan Ketchison is at a polling station on Provencher in the federal riding of St. Boniface St. Vital. And Megan joins us live. Megs?
Well, this is where it gets real. That's to quote Pierre Guérin he's the poll operations manager of Elections Canada. Now, as I stand here now, there's a little over a dozen people who have lined up here at the Franco-Manitoban Cultural Centre to vote in the election. Polls opened just seconds ago. Now, it is expected to be a busy day. There was at least 230,000 people in Manitoba that cast their ballots on in the advance polls. And Guérin expects it's going to be busy again today.
We also expect a higher participation level than we had certainly at the last election, which is what happened at advance polling. So there may be long lineups.
Now, what I'm seeing is in a lot of people's hands is their brown and white voter cards. That's what they're saying you should bring to vote, along with a piece of ID. It will tell you what poll and where you are supposed to vote. Now, if you don't have something like a driver's license, you can bring 2 other pieces of ID that have your address on it. And also, in speaking with Guérin, he was saying that if you want to avoid the lineups, is that voting between about 10 and 4 is when they believe the lineups will be less. They're expecting it to be very busy this afternoon between about 5 and 8:30. Now, if you are in line at 8:31, you won't be able to vote. If you're in line at 8:30, you will be able to vote. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. In other news, a candlelight vigil was held last night in Vancouver for the victims of this weekend's tragedy there.
So it's the heartbeat of the community of Vancouver, of Canada, of all the communities that are standing together in solidarity to get through this tragedy.
Sammy Joe Mbala speaking at the vigil, leading a crowd in a clapping tribute to honor the victims.
There is a saying called isang baksak, and it means when one falls, we all fall. But again, when one rises, we all rise. And I just felt compelled to really do this with the community.
The chair of the group, which organized the Filipino Street Festival, says he has not slept since that tragedy happened Saturday night. Now, a Filipino Winnipegger who lived in Vancouver for 15 years says his heart breaks for the community after the deadly Lapu-Lapu car ramming, claiming 11 lives. Dante Avios knows the area well and had friends who were at the block party on Saturday.
I was shocked initially and was wondering why is this happening in Vancouver. So it's very depressing for me because we have some human life that got lost.
Avios says he is praying for everyone impacted by the tragedy. People living at Traverse Bay are back home this morning after a fast-moving grass fire forced them to flee the area over the weekend. The municipality of Alexander issued evacuation orders to about 300 people after the fire started to spread on Saturday. Lisa Zimmerman says getting out was chaotic and stressful, but she says the community came together.
Everybody pulled together, lots of social media, people checking in on one another, everybody getting the word out.
The evacuation order was lifted yesterday as crews contained the fire. Officials say no structures were damaged, no one was hurt. The RM of Alexander, though, remains under a local state of emergency and a fire ban. The sexual assault trial of 5 former members of Canada's World Junior Hockey Team begins today in London, Ontario. The former players have all pleaded not guilty to sexual assault in connection to an alleged incident following a hockey gala in June of 2018. Jury selection took place Friday. The prosecution is scheduled to give an overview today of the evidence it intends to show over the course of the trial. Court proceedings are expected to wrap up early today to allow jurors to vote in this federal election. And the Vatican has announced the conclave to elect a successor to Pope Francis begins on May 7th. That is next Wednesday. An estimated 135 cardinals from around the world are eligible to take part in the secret process. The previous 2 conclaves needed just 2 days to select the next pope. You can find more news updated throughout your day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
So let's have a last look at what's happening in weather and traffic with Corey.
Going to be a bit of a chilly, drizzly election day today. We're sitting at 1 right now with the Forks. Could be warming up to 6 today, but keep in mind it will dip well below 0 tonight, right across southern Manitoba, -6 in Winnipeg tonight. It's a little more sunny up north, but still quite cold today as well. As for your commute, quiet commute overall, but might see some fog on the highways throughout southern Manitoba, which should dissipate later this morning.
All right. Thanks to Corey Funk and May McKillop and Brad Lillies. Woohoo! Our live show team this morning. Also in our news department, Heather Wells and Megan Ketchison. And contributors to today's program, Calcadan Mulugeta and Chidi Akuma. Also, Nellie Gonzalez is the producer of Current Affairs programs overall. And Leif Larson is the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Well, all of those folks are going to be in later today because we all shift our days, except the morning show, to cover the election tonight. So tomorrow morning, we are on location at the Sal's at Stafford and Taylor. So we hope you join us there for a post-election show and enjoy your voting day, Canada, Manitoba. Take care, be well, and thanks for tuning into CBC.